Hello guys, in this video we will discuss a manhwa called The Lone Necromancer Part 1 to Part 5. The first scene shown in the manhwa, The Lone Necromancer, is a city that is very congested and out of control. Then the scene changes and we see people jostling each other on the bus. This is where the main character named Sung-woo appears. He was groaning and saying, "Should I skip this hell and head to college?" While the main character was complaining, suddenly he was greeted by his junior named Hanho. After that, they chatted with each other. The main character asks, why does Hanho keep delaying joining the military? Hanho answered that he still believed that one day Korea would be united, so he will continue to postpone it until it becomes a reality. Then Sung-woo and Hanho continued their journey towards campus with Sung-woo in front of Hanho. While climbing the stairs, Hanho was silent, and the main character asked Hanho, was he crying because of what he just said? But Hanho answered no. Look up at the sky. Then the main character says, is there something wrong with the sky? Does it remind you of your brother's face? Then the scene changes to show the sky showing the number 99%. And the main character feels that Hanho is hallucinating because he misses the main character too much. When Hanho wanted to say something, he heard a system voice that said, downloading monsters. He tells the main character about the writing. After reaching 100%, suddenly the writing disappeared from the sky. But the main character feels that Hanho is hallucinating and cannot differentiate between the real world and the game world. Hanho slapped himself and convinced himself that it was a hallucination. He invited the main character to buy a cup of coffee to clear his mind. But the main character refused because he was afraid to deal with the professor if he was late for class. After that, they separated and Hanho invited the main cast to meet for lunch. The scene shows the main character going to class and taking part in class courses. While attending class, the main character feels very sleepy and regrets not buying coffee before attending class. Suddenly, when the main character couldn't hold back his sleepiness, a system window appeared that said, choose the best job to survive in this destroyed world. Then the main character was shocked and said, huh? Is there something wrong? When the main character tries to revive himself, suddenly the classroom becomes completely dark. The main character feels that it is impossible for total darkness to occur during the day. Then another classmate said he couldn't turn on his cell phone and panic broke out in the classroom. Then everyone realized something when they could see the system window in front of them. The main character hears the noise. The main character concludes that he is not the only one who can see the system window. There was a countdown and dazzling light from the system window. When the main character looked at the system window, there were cards flying around and there were different numbers of stars on the cards. Then, when the others hesitate to touch the card, the main character has another thought that says it is more dangerous to do nothing. Then the count continues to run backwards and the main character is confused about which card is the best he can choose. When confused by the many cards available, the main character then decides to choose a card with 5 stars, namely the job Necromancer. The system suddenly appeared and said there is another chance for people who didn't choose a card the first time. After that, the system disappeared and things become normal again. The classmate of the main character was amazed by seeing a real sword that fell out of nowhere, and that person said that he chose the warrior job and suddenly the sword fell from above and this person was named Minsu. And the main character started to get confused when nothing appeared after choosing job Necromancer. At the same time, there are people screaming who are being attacked by monsters. The person shouted for help from those around him. However, no one dared to help this person. When the monster succeeded in killing its target, the monster screamed and everyone panicked and ran erratically in the classroom. Only Minsu and the main character were left. The main character tremblingly asks for help from Minsu. And Minsu was already scared behind the main character and closed his eyes. When the main character feels hopeless, suddenly the monster attacks and the main character moves away from the monster. The main character tries to run away from the monster. He remembered that if he turned his back on the monster, it would make him suffer the same fate as the person who was attacked just now. The main character tries his best and throws chairs, and in the final attack, the main character succeeds in killing the monster. Suddenly words appeared from the system saying, "You've succeeded in killing the goblin and gotten gold coins." While wiping sweat, the main character is still thinking, what is the meaning of this message? He had a feeling that this world was like in the game. Then the system screen changed and said, in control the dead will become followers. Then you can see the description of the goblin. While the main character was busy looking at the system, someone shouted and told the main character to look behind him. The main character also looked back. He realized that the goblin had turned into a skeleton that resembled a goblin. This is where the main character realizes that the necromancer job he has chosen can resurrect something that has died. When he was amazed at the job he had chosen, suddenly a goblin monster appeared in front of the main character and the others felt scared when the monster appeared again. While the commotion was going on, the system window appeared again and said, "Your soldiers are ready to wait for orders." The main character hurriedly gave instructions to eradicate them all. After that, the goblin skeletons attacked all the goblin monsters one by one. And when the skeleton was off guard, the other goblin managed to cut off the skeleton's hand. When the skeleton goblin is pressed, the main character feels that he must join in fighting the monster. The main character asked Minsu to lend him the sword he was carrying, but Minsu insisted that the sword was his and did not give the sword to the main character. Then the main character approached Minsu and took a chair near Minsu. The main character tells Minsu to cut potatoes with the sword he always carries. After that, the main character helps the skeleton goblin to fight the monster, and finally the main character manages to defeat it. The system comes back and says, "You have earned 10 coin goals in killing goblins." After successfully killing the goblin herd, the skeleton soldier approaches the main character with scary eyes. So the main character tells the skeleton to look away, because the main character feels scared when he sees the skeleton. Then suddenly, the system window appeared again and the system said, "Death is in your power and the number of monsters you have raised has reached the maximum limit." So here the main character only has a maximum limit of 3 monsters. The scene moves to show people screaming for help. The main character has the feeling that this incident happened in one school or even in one country, while the main character opens the curtain in the classroom. The main character was shocked after looking around. It turned out that this incident had a very broad impact. The story continues as the atmosphere is chaotic and corpses are scattered everywhere. Then suddenly someone entered the classroom and shouted, "We shouldn't be in here." As people rush out of the classroom, they are greeted by a pack of cubic monsters in the hallway who are killing someone. Instantly, people ran scattered, and the goblins charged into the crowd. When the goblin almost killed someone, suddenly an army of skeletons came crashing in. Then the main character climbs so that people immediately run away and let the main character handle it. But there are 3 peaks from the main character who confirm that he is not the one who handled it, but rather the skeleton army returns to the main character who is trying to digest the events that occurred in this new world. The main character was shocked by the skeleton's head suddenly bouncing towards the main character. Then a system appears that says, "Your soldier has returned to eternal death," so the little information about the death referred to by the main character is no longer able to resurrect his soldier. The soldier had already died a second time, so he couldn't resurrect him. When the main character feels hopeless, it turns out that the main character's skeleton army manages to defeat the goblin monster and gets some gold coins. However, suddenly the main character was shocked by the sound of the system saying level out, and the text from the system showed that the main character had reached level 2. Then the main character said level 2, maybe this could happen too. Then the main character says status while the system window shows the status of the main character. The main character checks the status and estimates that this system is similar to in the game. While the main character is still checking the system, suddenly a system appears that asks the main character to choose 1 card from the 5 existing cards. These cards have differences in that they consist of ability cards, skill cards, item cards, strength cards, and other cards. The main character feels hopeless after realizing that the cards have random qualities. The main character decides to choose a skill card, and suddenly the main character is shocked by the sound of the system saying that the number of troops that the main character can raise has increased by 1. The system said that the main character's health was very low, and the main character realized that his skeleton army was not consuming too much health. These lives are needed to resurrect monsters, so the more monsters you resurrect, the more lives you need. After that, the main character gathers all his troops and stands guard around him with several mistakes that the main character has made. The main cast decides to focus on surviving and getting out of this terrible situation. The scene shifts to show the chaotic situation outside the campus and corpses scattered everywhere when the main character looks from the top of the building. He thought things outside were better than inside, but the main character's guess turned out to be wrong. The main character also made up his mind to get down from the building, and the skeleton troops were split into 2 teams, namely 3 guarding in front and 1 guarding behind the main character. The scene shows someone running and a squad of skeletons on standby. While descending the stairs, when a skeleton comes face to face with this person, he runs scared and immediately attacks the skeleton he meets. Then the main character realizes that the person lost. The main character trembled and said, "What the hell?" The main character answered, "No problem. These are my troops." The main character asked Hanho what card he took and took a card with a job that had 1 star. After hearing that answer, the faces of the main character and the skeleton were completely astonished by the choice he made. After that, the main character continued his journey down the stairs. Suddenly, the system appeared and said that there was a synergy list when Hanho joined the main cast. This synergy can be active provided that there are 5 people in one party using deckers, and the effect given is a critical shot chance and an increase in gold load by 10%. After descending the stairs, there are several monsters blocking the main character, and there is a large monster in the middle as the leader of the troop. Suddenly, a system window appeared and said that the goblin monster troops had reduced their strength due to being affected by the skill effect of the Smile of Death level 1. This skill automatically activates when fighting 4 or more skeletons. Then the skeleton troops attack the goblin troops in front of him. When the main character and Manhwa were feeling happy, suddenly the leader of the goblin squad raised his hand. After that, activate a skill called Madness of the Wild, and the troops experience an increase in strength as a result of that skill. Manhwa invites the main character to run away because he sees no chance of winning. The main character continues to think and realizes that his skeleton army is working based on his will. The main character looks up and sees the hand of the goblin squad leader telling one of the goblins to attack that hand. Quickly, one of the goblins jumped and lunged towards the hand of the goblin troop leader and managed to land an attack. Then he cut his hand. With strong determination, the skeleton army succeeded in defeating the goblin army. The main character gets 10 gold for each goblin that the goblin squad leader defeats, feeling angry and attacking the skeleton troops, but the skeleton troops work together to defeat the goblin army leader. Finally, the goblin army leader was defeated. Then the system appears saying you have received 50 gold coins for successfully defeating the goblin squad leader. The main character approaches the corpse of the goblin squad leader and sees that the monster dropped a drop item. After being picked up, the main character takes the dropped items in the form of a spear and bracelet. The spear is called Crude Spear with Common Glass and does not have any effect. And the other is a bracelet called Spirit of the Wild with a grade and has the effect of providing 20% additional damage to small opponents, such as the goblin type. So after we see the results of the item drop, we can conclude that items with Clash Common do not have any effect. After the main character uses these two types of items, suddenly the skeleton troops get an attack buff. Speed is increased by 20% and the buff will be active if the required conditions are met. It turns out that the skeleton troops got buffed because the main character got a skill from the previous goblin troop leader, and that skill is called Madness of the White. So it can provide effects for goblin-type monsters such as increasing attack power by 10% and attack speed by 20%. After getting everything, the main character said, "Good job" to the skeleton squad leader and stroked his head. Then the chairman grinned and made the main character and Manhwa feel scared after the main character's ridiculous behavior. Manhwa asked the main character, "Where do we go next?" The main character answered, "We should get out of this building first." The scene changes to show many people gathered in the room. The main character motioned for the skeleton troops to hide so they wouldn't be attacked by the group of humans, because they are considered monsters by those people. While the main character was walking, someone shouted to say stay calm. And it turned out that the person shouting was one of the student council members on campus. Then a woman shouted at the student council and said, "What are you thinking in a situation like this? Quickly destroy the door so we can go out together." The student council said that the door cannot be destroyed and all we can do is remain calm. As the main character walks, he reminds him that the student council president is named Lee Jin-suk. He is very power-crazed and is known for frequently harassing women on campus. Apart from that, he also felt dissatisfied even though he had obtained a position in the OSIS management. When the main character tried to leave the room, Lee Jin-suk shouted at the main character to stay away from the door because it was considered dangerous. The main character and Manhwa turned around suddenly, and he suddenly changed his tone because he wanted to maintain his image in front of people. "Then do you choose a card?" The main character answered, "Yes, we both do that, and next to me, this is Manhwa," but Lee Jin-suk ignored Manhwa and said, "If you have a gun, you also have to protect the campus people." Suddenly, Lee Jin-suk asked the main character, "Answer, what do you choose?" Is a Spider-Man, and he really looked down on the main character because he thought the main character couldn't help him. Lee Jin-suk proudly said that he had defeated a goblin, and he said that he took a good card with 2 stars and the job was Warrior Shield. Suddenly, Mitsu came and said, he heard a commotion upstairs and Lee Jin-suk quickly told the others to take shelter in the cafe. The main character calls Manhwa to follow him. It turns out there's something odd about the door. In the door, it says the door is locked with great strength and defeat the boss monster in this area to be able to open the door. If the boss monster cannot be defeated within the specified time, then all monsters in the area will be strengthened. The remaining time is 2 hours and 11 minutes. 19 seconds after seeing the writing, the main cast concludes that they have to kill the boss monster so they can get out of this building. So there's no need to wait for outside help. Then when the main character wanted to leave, he was held back by Lee Jin-suk so that the main character remained under his control. But the main character still insisted on leaving and said no one would come to help us. Because this happened in one country, Lee Jin-suk said, "Didn't you just join the military? You should know that the Korean military forces are very strong, so they will definitely save us," thought Lee Jin-suk. The main character remained indifferent to Lee Jin-suk's words and sighed as he left them. While they were making a fuss, a goblin army came ready to attack them. Haltingly, they say that we should take their place when we feel afraid. They were even more surprised by the skeleton goblin troops that appeared. Then the main character said that they had to keep thinking clearly when things were like this. And doing ridiculous behavior and breaking into leadership in a situation like this will lead people to death. Trembling, Lee Jin-suk asked the main character, "What is your real job?" And the main character answered something extraordinary. The main character also orders his skeleton troops to attack and slaughter all the existing goblin troops. While everyone was amazed to see the goblin troops fighting the skeleton troops, Lee Jin-suk felt scared and was still digesting what had happened. The scene shows the skeleton fighting the goblin army and now to fight the goblin army because the main character has learned from his previous mistakes. When the main character is fighting the goblin troops, the scene shows that Lee Jin-suk and Minho are feeling scared. And maybe Lee Jin-suk still underestimates the main character. Then the main character told the skeleton troops to blockade the stairs so that the goblin troops couldn't escape. The main character has the idea that he wants to show people that he can control skeletons, and those people got hope and they believed they could conquer the boss of the area. When fighting goblin troops, the main character's items and skills are active, namely skill synergy tips. After feeling the situation in the main character's war, the scene shows people starting to talk about the main character and finding out that the main character can control the skeleton. In the end, the main character managed to defeat the goblin army, and everyone cheered with joy. The main character checks the surroundings, and it turns out that there are no drop items when defeating ordinary monsters. Suddenly, the system appeared and said, "You are the 34th person to defeat 20 monsters. Successfully getting this roulette ticket is limited to the first 100 people." The main character said, "Rolex tickets, you might don't have storage space, how can I use it?" Then the main character congratulates his skeleton army, and as usual, the skeleton army grins and makes the main character relieved. The main actor approached Lee Jin-suk and asked again, "What about last time? Does that count towards helping?" And Lee Jin-suk couldn't say anything while holding back his anger. The main character also explains to the others that we must defeat the boss monster, and at the door, it is clear that there are only 2 hours left. After that, someone raised their hand and said that they saw the boss monster on the rooftop. The man explains that the boss monster was huge and killed the professor. After hearing the person's explanation, the main character concluded that the goal now was to get to the boss monster on the rooftop. When the main character asks, "Is there anyone willing to help him fight the boss?" no one answered. Some even immediately looked away from the main character. While the main character and Hanho were chatting, a woman appeared who said, "Even if we fight the boss monster together, it doesn't necessarily mean that the results will be good." The woman's name is Yoon Jisoo, with the job Tiger Hunter, who has 3 stars. He said, "There's no need to bring those who are just a burden. We still have skeletons that are much more reliable than them." After that, the main character asked Lee Jin-suk if he wanted to come. But tremblingly, he avoided staying here because without him, there would be no one to look after these people. After that, the main characters, Jisoo and Hanho, headed to the rooftop together with an army of skeletons to fight the boss monster. Can the main character defeat the boss monster? Or will the main character lose one of his skeleton troops? When the 3 of them climbed the stairs, suddenly a goblin monster attacked and the main character ordered a skeleton army to fight the goblin herd. Jisoo didn't stay silent either. Then he managed to cut down a goblin. It didn't stop there. Jisoo slashed another goblin again. And he managed to defeat a group of goblins alone. And when Hamo called the main character, he said that this person was very. Before he finished speaking, he saw that the main character was able to kill the goblin herd at the front. As for feeling that the 2 of them are the same, after continuing their journey, the 3 of them met Professor Huang and his condition was very sad. Professor Huang feels guilty because he cannot protect the students in his class. After that, the professor explained that when the system appeared, he invited the students in his class to evacuate to the rooftop. But unfortunately, he met a boss monster. At the last moment, the professor left the main character a message that he should not go there and that he must survive. Finally, the professor breathed his last breath. While you were contemplating, suddenly an exclusive quest appeared entitled Professor's Revenge. If you successfully defeat the boss monster, you will get an exclusive skill. After that, the main character was pensive and he asked himself, why does he have to go through things like this? Then the main character goes to the boss's room with a firm determination to take revenge for his professor. The scene changes to show the damaged rooftop, and the main character is shocked to see a monster eating humans. The main character is very disgusted with the behavior of the monsters, and the main character invites his team to rush to attack the monster. The herd of monsters noticed the presence of the main character and reported to the other monsters that someone had entered their area. The monsters quickly surrounded the 3 of them, Then, without further ado, the main character activates the skill and a battle occurs between the main character and the monsters. The main character continues to give directions to the skeleton army and his friends. But in the middle of the fight, Hannibal felt disappointed. Why did he take this deck and useless job? When a monster wanted to attack Hanno, he rushed to attack the monster first. And apparently he didn't realize that his attack just now could kill a goblin monster. Then he remembered that throwing things was his specialty in class. He then continued to attack the goblin monster blindly. He also wore an expression full of pride after finding the required skill. When it felt like everything was going under control, suddenly the boss monster appeared. All the goblins prostrated themselves before the boss monster and asked their boss for help. The system also said that a boss monster had appeared, and the name of this boss monster was the Goblin Centurion. The boss monster screamed and rekindled the enthusiasm of the goblin troops, and then they attacked the main character again. The battle continues, and now the situation has turned around where the main character is being suppressed by the boss monster troops. Then when the main character feels that his life is continuing to decrease due to raising monsters, Fathu comes with his cool style. He also attacked the boss monster. To distract the boss monster easily removed the dagger stuck in its arm. And as a result, the boss monster got even angrier and chased Hanho. When the boss monster's attention was diverted, Jisoo suddenly came and launched an attack on the boss. Jisoo initially wanted to defeat the boss with one attack, but the boss was still able to survive Jisoo's attack. The main character saw the opportunity coming and gave orders to the skeleton troops to surround the boss. Then the skeleton army launched its attack. The main character did not remain silent. He also attacked the boss and made a deep wound on the boss monster's face. The boss monster counted the number of skeletons the main character had and realized that the main character had run out of lives. Then he launched his attack towards the main character. When the main character is really on the edge, the main character sees his sword stuck in the rubble of a building. He moves to take the sword and prepares to fight the boss monster. The main character orders his skeleton army to distract the boss. And when the boss monster was off guard, the main character threw the sword he got at his skeleton army. Then the attack was carried out with 3 people in the team using the Sky Synergy sword, which was active and had the effect of increasing attack speed by 10% and reducing the weight of the weapon by 50%. Then the 3 of them attacked the boss monster at the same time. And it makes the boss monster confused because the attacks come from different directions. The main character also orders his skeleton to attack and sacrifice himself for the sake of mutual victory. And at this moment, the main character recalls memories from when the skeleton helped him survive until now. When the main character expresses his sadness, an unexpected incident occurs. The system window also said that the skeleton had successfully negated the effect of the boss's first attack with 88% probability. Thus, the skeleton managed to defeat the boss monster. Then the system window appeared and said the boss monster had been defeated and got 225 gold coins. The system window appeared again saying, "You have successfully leveled up to level 3. It's not just the main characters who level up. The skeleton also managed to level up after absorbing the power of the boss monster, and the effect it got was an increase in defense and a role as commander. Then the main character was surprised by the mark on the skeleton's forehead, and he rushed to check the status of the skeleton. It turns out that the 3 of them both leveled up and chose their own cards. Jisoo asked the opinion of the main character. Which card should he choose? But the main character said that it came back to their respective luck, because what the system gives is a random card. The main character also chooses a skill card and gets skill bonus weapon information. This skill can allow the main character to make weapons using the bones of monsters. The weapons that can be made by the main character are swords, blunt spears, and also arrows. When the main character successfully defeated the boss monster, a system window appears stating that the exclusive quest has been completed, and the number of skeletons that can be resurrected increases by 1. So for now, the main character can awaken a maximum of 5. At the same time, he got the thief robe, and the main character asked, "What's the use of it?" Then Hanho answered, "It can hide me from monsters with 50% effectiveness." Then looked away and asked Jisoo, "What did you get?" Jisoo answered, "They say this is an ignition stone, and when used it can attract weapons and create an explosive effect on the weapon." While Jisoo and Hanho were chatting, the main character interrupted their conversation and asked them to leave this area first. The scene shows that they are all waiting for the results from the red boss, which the main character does on the rooftop and speaks haltingly. He says Senior Jin Suk, and when he holds his shield, then turns his gaze to Minsu and says, "What's wrong?" Minsu stammered and asked, "Shall we stay here?" Hearing Minsu's words, Lee Jin Suk immediately changed his expression to anger. Minsu continued his words. He heard that people were talking. They should follow to fight the boss on the rooftop. As Minsu continued his words, suddenly Lee Jin Suk grabbed Minsu's shoulder and he said, "Damn it." And Lee Jin-suk continued his words. He said that he wanted to do his best to protect people, but those people were ungrateful. Then Lee Jin-suk rushed to approach these people. Lee Jin-suk shouted at the people there. He said, "I tried to protect you, but you are ungrateful. If anyone wants to come out and help Sung-woo, please go and get out of here." People were surprised to hear Lee Jin-suk's words, and they asked, "Where do you mean to go?" And Lee Jin-suk answered, "Please go help Sung-woo to hunt down your boss." Continuing his words, "I have tried to protect you and people deny it, that all you are doing is staying here." And Sung-woo was the only person who helped us. Then there was a commotion between them and Lee Jin-suk, always comparing himself to the main character, when everyone was silent because they saw a sword behind them. Lee Jin-suk asked these people, he said, "Why are you silent now? While I'm talking?" When Lee Jin-suk focused his attention behind him, he was surprised to see a herd of skeletons behind him. I was so shocked that the main character asked, "Did you say earlier that you wanted to see me die?" Then the scene changes to show a door that is still locked. When the main character wants to touch the doorknob, suddenly something surprising happens. The prohibition previously on the door suddenly cracked and disappeared. With his face covered in weakness, Lee Jin-suk still couldn't believe that the main character had defeated the boss monster. Then Sung-woo invited his friends to rush out of the building and left Lee Jin-suk limp. Before the main character left the building, he asked Lee Jin-suk, "Is there anything you want to say?" And Lee Jin-suk scratched his head. He didn't know what to say. Then someone answered that he was rubbish from the start. He acted like he was very strong and was trying to protect us all. Then other people also started talking about Lee Jin-suk, and Lee Jin-suk could only remain silent and not say anything. When the three of them left the building, the three of them noticed something strange. Then the main character thought, "Why is it so quiet and calm here?" The main character invites people from inside the building to come out immediately. And the main character urges them to be careful so as not to provoke the monsters. Then the scene shows that outside the building you can see lots of corpses strewn about. While the main character was thinking about something, Hanno pointed in another direction and said that there was someone standing there. The main character rushed over to those people. However, the gazes of those people really didn't like the presence of the main character. And the main characters also think that they are survivors of the Goblin Army's attack. Suddenly, Lee Jin-suk helped the people around him and he rushed over to his senior. His seniors also felt proud that Lee Jin-suk was able to survive this incident. Lee Jin-suk just replied that he was just lucky, and he felt he knew that the student council president would definitely survive this incident. So after seeing the conversation just now, we know that Lee Jin-suk's older brother is the student council president. Lee Jin-suk rushed over to the student council president and whispered something to him. Then the main actor's friends said that he was talking about the main character, and Han-ho answered that it was very clear from the look in his eyes. After that, the student council president rushed over to the main character and he introduced himself. In Park, seeing Lee Jin-suk's expression, he felt suspicious about what was going to happen. Then there was a woman who told the student council president that he must have gone through a hard time to fight this monster. The student council president answered the woman's words and said, "You will be safe if you follow us." Then what Minsu thought happened. The student council president approached the main character and pointed at the skeleton monster. Then he said, "What kind of creature is this?" The main character also said that the monster was under his control. The monster came from the job he chose from the system. Then the student council president continued to question the main character and said, "You chose a monster that has killed humans." The main character realized that they wanted to corner the main character, and they said that if they wanted to join the student council president's group, they had to kill the skeleton army. The main character also refuses the invitation from the student council president. The student council president kept cornering the main character and said, "Do you still want to keep those monsters?" Meanwhile, the monster has killed many humans. The main character also emphasized again that he could not kill the monster because killing the monster was the same as losing his weapon. And the main character again said, "Losing a weapon in the current situation is tantamount to suicide." The student council president answered, "No problem, as long as you join us. I will protect you all." Then Jisoo approached the student council president and said that they didn't play a big role in this situation, so they didn't have the right to rule as they pleased. Then the student council president found out that Jisoo was the head of the physical department. With his location, Jisoo said that he was no longer part of the department because things were different now. The student council president told Jisoo to stay calm and persuaded her to join their side. And he emphasized that if Jisoo didn't join, he would regret it later. Then Jisoo answered angrily that she refused and told the student council president to stop pretending to be good in public because Jisoo knew the true nature of the student council president who often corrupted money from campus festivals. The student council president was shocked and realized that it was Jisoo who had leaked this to the public. Stammering, he invited Jisoo to go and told her to be careful of monster attacks. Then the three of them left, accompanied by cursed words from the student council president. The scene changes to show corpses lying around. While the three of them were walking, the main character asked Jisoo, does he have a problem with the student council president? And Jisoo answered that the student council president was a very annoying person. Then Jisoo said that the OSIS president often toyed with women and many at his level had been trapped by the OSIS president's advances. Then after hearing Jisoo's explanation, the main character understood the situation and Hanho felt very disgusted with the behavior of the student council president. The main character explains that the first mission is to avoid the campus buildings. Jisoo also answered that if you said this mission was an escape, it would be better to avoid crowds. It seems that monsters attack in places where there are a lot of people. The main character thinks and concludes to avoid the building and get out of here and then choose the path on the hill behind the campus, because it led to the main gate and there were only a few people there. Then the scene moves to the path that the main character has said. It can be seen that the main character and his team are walking along this road. The main character also said that this street was very quiet and he had a bad feeling. Suddenly the main character signaled to stop and be quiet because the main character saw something up there. Due to the distant viewpoint, the main character still doesn't know what it is. Then it was shown that it was a monster carrying an axe. After looking carefully, the monster was a monster from a person carrying a ship. Very surprised to see the main character, then the monster screamed as loudly as possible. It quickly hit the main character and his team. Instead of the main character feeling afraid, he actually felt excited because a new skeleton material had appeared. The monster angrily lunged at the main character and the main character panicked because there was no prior preparation. Spontaneously, the main character and his team dodged the monster's attack. Hanho felt this was very crazy and he hid in the bushes because he was very afraid because his attacks missed or turned around and attacked the main team again. Jisoo resisted the person's attack with all her might. At the same time, a skeleton army came to help Jisoo. From the monster's attack, the main character shouted telling his skeleton to withstand the monster's attack. Ready, the leader of the skeleton army detained the Ulks. Ulks is the name for the person who attacked with the axe earlier. By inviting him one by one, the monster was very angry because he felt humiliated by the skeleton army. Then he swung his axe at the skeleton. But one of the skeleton's skills was activated, thereby increasing the effect of repelling attacks by 88%. Then the skeleton managed to land an attack on Ulks' left arm. While the skeletons were distracted, Ulks shouted at Jisoo so that they immediately moved to the field so they could have more space to move around. Jisoo felt disappointed because she thought she could fend off Ulks' attack, but in fact he fell when the monster's first attack. The main character said that it would be better for them not to split up and that they must fight the monster like they would against a boss monster. While they were making plans, the OLX monster was getting closer. The main character and his team were hiding behind the trees and waiting for the right moment to ambush the monster. The monster realized that they were hiding and quickly headed towards the main character. The main character also explains the plan, namely as usual, the skeleton will go first as bait and the main character will look around. There are enough corpses to make an army. When the monster attacks blindly, the strength of the main character will not be effective in the field in the middle of the forest. When the monster was off guard, it turned out that the skeleton army had surrounded the monster. Hanho released his Daedra to attack the Ulks monster, then followed by a squad of skeletons, who also released thunder at the monster. You can see the Ulks monster having difficulty repelling Hanho's sudden attack. And the skeletons of the skeleton army charge at the monster and blindly, the Ulks monsters attack the skeletons. The Ulks monster's expression suddenly changed because he just realized that two skeleton troops had landed in his hands. When the skeletons locked the movement of the boss monster, the main character and Jisoo immediately sped up to land a downward attack. The monster threw off the heat of the skeleton that was locking it, but this was not allowed by Jisoo, who had launched an attack on the Ulks monster. The main character did not waste the sacrifices of his skeleton troops and also managed to apply an attack to the Ulks monster's arm. While feeling the pain, suddenly the leader of the skeleton army was on top of the monster's head and ready to deliver the final attack. And without so much as flinching, the skeleton leader managed to deliver a final attack that charged the monster. Then a message appeared from the system saying, "You have succeeded in defeating the herd and getting 110 gold." The main character also wondered about the system saying that it was the Ulks commander who concluded that the commander was stronger from regular Ulks, and Jisoo said that it seems like this commander is weaker than the boss monster. The main character also said that good teamwork allowed them to defeat the monster easily. And when the main character wants to resurrect the monster, the system appears and says that the main character's level is still too low to resurrect a medium-sized monster. After that, the main character parked the corpses he had seen earlier and he asked Jisoo what card he chose when the system appeared. Jisoo said that she chose the card based on her favorite color, and it said that the card was called Special Hunter and there were 3 stars on the card. So here's a small note from the author explaining that special hunters in the Joseon era usually had that profession as experts in hunting monster animals. While they were talking, it turned out that Hanho was eavesdropping and muttering, "Apparently, I'm the only one who has 1 star here," and the skeletons look very pitying. Then the scene changes to when the main character wants to test his new skill, because the lives he has collected are already enough to use the skill. Then here the illustrator depicts the main character with his P-key and succeeds in activating skybound weapon information and creating several weapons. While the main character is checking the system, he decides to create his own weapon by illustrating a guide, and it turns out that this skill can create weapons according to the wishes of the main character, as long as the basic material is bone, and this skill can improve over time. The main character also shares his new weapon with the skeletons. When the skeletons use it, it turns out that there is an additional effect that gives additional 30% damage when they are dying and an additional 10% when fighting medium monsters. Apart from that, because you use 5 blunt weapons, it triggers a synergy effect, which gives an additional 5% possible attack that results in unconsciousness of the opponent. While the main actor was stunned by the effect given, the main actor emphasized that he only lent it to Hanho and told him to use it well. The main cast team continues their journey. Hanho suddenly pointed towards the front, and the main character was surprised to see that why was there a pile of cars in this area. When the main character gets closer, he realizes that the area is locked and requires survivalists to defeat the boss monster in that area. After looking more closely, it turns out that if the boss monster has not been defeated within the given time duration, the monsters in that area will be strengthened. Then it was seen that the remaining time was only 8 hours. Then a system appeared that said, "Choose a location to fight the boss monster." And the system tells that the Olks monster is scouting its enemies based on smell. If the prey is strong, the Olks monster will send more reinforcements. While they were discussing, Jisoo noticed the presence of something, and there were lots of footsteps. After they saw, it turns out that there is an Olks army heading towards his prey. It turns out that the Olks troops were heading towards the student council leadership team that we knew about from the start. They consisted of many people, and then a very tragic scream was heard, and Jisoo realized that the sound came from the position of the student council president group. The main character also said that gathering with lots of people is not always a good decision. The main character also realizes that he is grateful for choosing the necromancer job and getting the synergy effect from the skeleton army. Then a system appeared that said the attack from the 5 Olks monsters would begin soon. When he was about to complain, suddenly a group of Olks monsters came and felt very scared. The troops felt confused and looked around for the main team. The main character is silent and thinking about something. He smiled as if he had a good idea. Had a bad feeling when the main character said he had a good idea. The main character also said to prepare a trap by taking advantage of the surrounding environment and the skeleton army. The scene changes to show the Olks monsters who are confused looking for the main character's team. The monster also realized something while looking here and there. Then there was someone who shouted at the group of monsters, and it turned out that this person was Hanho, who was used by the main character as bait, and he gave insults to the Olks monster. As if understanding what Hanho said, the Olks monster headed towards Hanho and made Hanho feel afraid while continuing to berate the Olks herd. But suddenly the monsters realized something, and they were too late to respond. Instantly crashing into the shield blocking their path, they also ate a trap from the main character and were successfully surrounded by the plan that had been prepared by the main character. The main character also orders the skeleton troops to attack, and a greenish light is seen approaching security. Olks has also responded to the skeleton troops. The Olks flock suddenly approached, and the main character and Jisoo took advantage of the opportunity. Then give a finishing attack, and then a system appears which says the main character has succeeded in killing the herd and getting a lot of gold. Apart from that, the main character gets gold from the achievement of successfully surviving the monster attack in the first wave. The main characters also level up on this occasion. The main character also received another message from the system saying that the lives that could be resurrected by the main character had increased by 2, and the total number of lives that could be resurrected by the main character was 7 monsters. The main character also thinks that the current amount is still very small, namely only amounting to 50 points. While the main character was contemplating, Hanho said that he got a new skin. It turns out that Hanho got a skill called a hypersonic card, which can only be used at certain times. The main character turned to Jisoo and saw Jisoo surrounded by a red aura, and he said that he added 2 points of strain, and he felt his body feel hot and different from before. The main character called Hanho and told him to return the sword he lent him, because the main character wants Hanho to use the Gagger correctly so he can use the skills he just got. The leader of the skeleton army was seen approaching Manhwa and directly asking for his sword back. The scene changes to show the campus building on fire. From a distance, while the main character was walking down the road, suddenly he gave the team the signal to stop. He also saw a bus being attacked by a herd of Olks monsters. The main character looks for a place to hide and counts the number of cords. There are 7 monsters. When the Olks monster was attacking Arabic, a spear came out of the bus, and the main character realized that there was one person who was trying to attack the Olks monster. From inside the bus, he concluded that if this continued, everyone on the bus would die. Then Jisoo said the main character, we should help them. The main character also confirmed that if they attack the art troops from 2 sides, then victory would be guaranteed. But even the main character is not sure if those on the bus will help when they attack the Olks monster. The troops were increasingly blindly attacking the bus, and suddenly the main character had an idea to carry out an attack. The main character pointed towards something, and Jisoo and Manhwa were still confused about the main character's behavior. Then the scene changes to show the situation in the bus where the other collie is scolding the spear carrier to defend himself well. Then it was seen that the person carrying the spear was named Lee Jong-soo. While frightened, Lee told his comrades to use his sword and shield to help defend. Then it was seen that the people on the bus were feeling frustrated and they were giving up hope for their safety. Suddenly, the Olks monster realized something, and it could be seen that the skeleton army was advancing quickly towards the monster herd. Then the skeleton army crashed into the group of people on the bus. Very surprised when they saw this incident, the skeleton army attacked the security by surrounding it from all directions, and one of the people on the bus said that he could not believe what was happening. When things were quiet, they felt that the monsters had gone, but suddenly one of the skeletons appeared like a ghost in films. And the person was very shocked and surprised when he saw the skeleton that suddenly appeared. Someone's hand was seen banging on the bus window, and it turned out that the hand was Manhwa, who wanted to get on the bus. Then you can see the corpses of the Olks troops who have been defeated by the main character's troops. The main character also asked, when he got on the bus, could they use that item? So here we still don't know what the main character is pointing at. Then the person explained that we could make transactions on that item as long as we had enough gold. Then you can see that the item in question is a TV. The main character and Manhwa approached the TV and realized that the TV was a shop, or what we could say is an online shop in a game. A system appears on the TV which says Welcome to Class E Shop. Here we know that shops in this world have their own levels. The main character also touches the TV screen, and the main character is still amazed by the shop that exists at this time. Then you can see the menu display in the shop, and this shop offers roulette with different levels. The more expensive the price, the better things you will get here. There is a note stating that the Class E show only sells roulette up to the maximum gold level. Jisoo and Manhwa were curious about what the main character was doing. Manhwa asked, are you sure what items will appear from this shop? Jisoo also asked, will a knife fall from above or whatever? The 3 of them were still asking each other questions about how the shop worked. Then the main character answered, we will know after we try it. The panel shows the options available in the shop again. While checking the shop, Manhwa said that he had 360 gold, and the only option he could buy was bronze roulette. Jisoo also said that she only had 584 gold. Then Manhwa asked the main character, approximately how much gold do you have? While checking the system screen, the main character answered, approximately the gold I have is around 1550 gold. Manhwa and Jisoo were very surprised to see the number of golds the main character had. And Manhwa advised the main character to choose the silver roulette ticket. The main character also remembers that he has 1 free roulette ticket that can be exchanged without looking at the level limit. He got this prize from his achievements while hunting. Then Manhwa asked, will the main character choose the gold tier ticket roulette? Exactly as Manhwa expected, the main character also chose the gold level ticket roulette. Here, there's a little explanation. When the main character chooses the roulette ticket, the system will draw again whether the main character will get the main prize or the dregs. So for each level of the ticket round, there is another level in it, namely the main prize, second prize, and third prize. So this ticket wheel system really depends on luck. Manhwa was gaping, waiting for the results that the main character would get. Meanwhile, the main character is still relaxing while drinking the canned drink he is holding. It turns out that the Rolex ticket system also has a next time option, which means zonk, which will get you nothing. Jisoo, Manhwa, and the main character were very surprised to see the results of the roulette ticket they got. It turns out that the main character gets the main prize in the gold level ticket roulette. The main character also struggles in the stages of life. The most important thing is luck. Then the main character is seen holding a crystal ball. The following are the specifications of the old one called Dizzy Spirit. The effect is to increase life by 300 and life recovery by 200% with the presence of 1 legendary item, making the main character even more overpowered. Hanho also said that it was very cool to get the main prize from the gold-level ticket roulette. And the main character answered, I told you this was really cool. Hanho also asked the main character, why didn't the main character spin the server with the ticket because the main character still had gold left? The main character also answered, why should I do it again? And there was a commotion between them. It turns out that as a result of the commotion, the main character did another spin. The main character and Jisoo both got the second prize from the silver tier ticket roulette. So the main character gets a shield and Jisoo gets a long sword. As we know, Hanho was the unluckiest person and he got a grade C potion package. He also had a flat expression as if he didn't understand why he was always the unluckiest of the three of them. Hanho also regretted doing this spin and said, why did he get something like that but it took longer? Then when Jisoo put down her new sword, she said that the situation on the playground was still very chaotic. Are we going to help them? Hanho worriedly said, are we going there? Then the main character said, then come on. We're going there with something bigger. Until the main character looks at the vehicle nearby. Then the scene changes to show the situation in the playground where the Ox are slaughtering the survivors there. Then a sword managed to penetrate the monster's body. Then it was shown that the one who stabbed the monster was the student council president. He also shouted for everyone to gather and stay close to him so that he could easily open a safe path for them. The student council president's subordinate pointed to the distance and said there were people trapped there. Seen in the direction in question were people who were struggling to run from the massacre of the herd. As usual, with his cunning attitude, the student council president said not to care about them and that there was no time to save them. Then he ordered his subordinates who had shields to block the road so that the Ox monsters couldn't get to them. The Ox monsters' attention was diverted by something behind them. Suddenly, the bus crashed into the security of the Ox monster. The bus kept going fast and hit the Ox monsters one by one. The bus driver laughed with joy after seeing the entry system, which said that he had succeeded in killing the Ox monster and I had gotten a lot of gold. On the other hand, there was a dagger attack aimed at the Ox monster. It turned out that the dagger attack was carried out by the collaboration of Hanho and the skeleton troops. The main character in his internet mode said everyone quickly get on the bus. Then the people there knew who the main character was and a woman said that we had to follow that person. Then there is the Ox who is running to catch the bus. However, the Ox had to face Jisoo who was testing her new sword. The monster tried to fend off Jisoo's attack and the monster's attack was stopped. Then Jisoo smiled and muttered that she was not the same as before. Suddenly there was fire which startled the monster. It turns out that as a result of using his new sword, the sword has a fire attribute and can be used during battle. Full of joy, Jisoo felt happy when she succeeded in defeating one monster Ox. And when he looked at the main character, he was surprised to see what the main character was doing. It turns out that the main character has succeeded in defeating many monsters with his skeleton army. Then one by one the Ox monsters were defeated and as seen. In this panel, it looks more like the massacre of these Ox monsters as planned by the main character. There are skeletons who attack at close range, there are those who pull out the dagger that has been used, and there are those who deliver the dagger back to the skeletons who attack from a distance, so that none of the Ox monsters can run away. Then Jisoo muttered she just realized that she was wrong in just accumulating her points and strains and she still looked weaker than the Ox monsters. Jisoo also wondered who the real identity of the main character was, because everything he did he had predicted beforehand. Then there are footsteps running towards the main character. It turned out that the people running were the student council president and his subordinates. Then the main character said, so what now? What's the problem with being with a monster? The main character continued his words. Didn't you say before that you don't want to be with monsters? Then the student council president answered while stammering, can you forget the grudge between us? Doesn't that seem too cruel? The main character replied it was inappropriate to be said by someone who abandoned others and only thought about his own safety. As usual, the student council president started to deny it, that he didn't leave them, but instead he just ran to check on something. Then the main character said, is your answer acceptable to the people on the bus? Then the student council president gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger by showing an expression that was unpleasant to look at. A system appeared that said that the boss monster was very angry due to a failed hunting mission. Then suddenly the shadow of the boss monster was behind the main character. And the main character can only remain silent due to the appearance of the notification system. The student council president and his subordinates felt scared while looking around. Then the main character said, this bus will leave soon. If you want to go up, you must follow my instructions. Then the student council president's subordinate said, what should we do? Now if the student council president answers us, there is no other choice now. And the main character also added, don't forget to remove the chain armor. The student council president did not accept being told to remove his armor. He emphasized that if this armor is removed, then what will protect it? Then the main character answered that he would provide protection and there would be a fee that had to be paid. He emphasized that there was a price for all of this, because he is not one of the groups that is pathetic to protect students. Here the main character satirizes the student council president for his previous actions. Suddenly the system window appeared and showed that the main character had leveled up to level 5, so now the main character can add medium-sized monsters to his army, and the main character suspects that he can raise a monster of the same level. In addition, the maximum number of main cast troops has increased by 2, so the main character can now expand his army to 9 monsters. Then comes one of the skeleton troops from the main character, named Righty, and the main character realizes that the clothes the main character gave to Righty are too big and make Righty unable to move freely. Righty is the skeleton he trusts the most, and he thinks about training Righty to be even more powerful. For your information, the main character gave the name Righty because the skeleton only has one right arm. When the main character uses the clothes he had given him, Righty comes and warns the main character. He said if we save people, we will need more buses. Confidently, the main character assures that they don't need to look for a bus anymore because he is determined to fight these monsters. The system window appeared and set the MC's words to fight the Orcs leader, and the Orcs would continue to chase all the survivors with the aim of eradicating them. The main character also said that based on the quest, there was no way out. To avoid people, and the only thing they can do to get out of school is to kill the Orcs leader. One of the passengers on the bus burst out and said that he had seen the Orcs in the gym and there were a lot of them, namely 100 Orcs. Suddenly, all the passengers on the bus were shocked and scared to the point of losing hope. Based on the system window, the penalty effect has been activated. This happens because of a lack of harmony between fellow team players. The system window continues to appear, showing the impact that occurs due to the activated penalty effect. The penalty effects that occur consist of the carelessness of weak new players and the moral despair of players who have no enthusiasm. This results in attack power, attack speed, and gold decreasing by 10% and increasing mass confusion by 10%. The main character remains determined to attack the Orcs because the main character realizes that the people on the bus are useless. Even though they have weapons, the main character is determined to fight all the Orcs alone. Hanho and Jisoo were shocked by the main actor's words and gave the main actor the craziness of what the main actor said. However, the main character remains in his position without being shaken in the slightest. Everyone on the bus couldn't believe the main character's words and doubted the main character's words. The student council president and his friends laughed at and looked down on the main character. They are even happy if the main character loses when fighting these monsters. Jisoo also agreed with the words of the student council president and called him a very stupid person. Jisoo tries to make the main character aware of the decisions he has made. Jisoo said that the strength that everyone on the bus had combined was still not enough to fight the Orcs monsters, but the main character remembered Jisoo's words when they fought the boss monster on the first floor, that not everyone can fight better than the main character's skeleton army. According to the main character, even though this time it is much more dangerous, he is confident in the decision he has made. The main character's friends, Hanho and Jisoo, still don't trust the main character's decisions and consider the main character's actions very risky. When they arrived at the gym field where there were hundreds of Orcs, the main character and his skeleton troops rushed out of the bus and started carrying out the strategy that the main character had put together well. While the main character is waiting for the arrival of the Orcs monster army with its skeleton army, the people on the bus are still discussing the main character's determination and assume that it is a suicide plan. The main character's friends also organize a rescue mission for the main character. If things get out of control, they will be ready to step on the gas to save the main character and get out of the place full of Orcs monsters. From a distance, the main character can see a group of Orcs monsters coming towards him. The Orcs monster squad has a very large body size compared to the main character. And in the skeleton army, there is one Orcs monster that is very striking among the other monsters, namely Red. Since the system window didn't appear, the main cast guessed that the Red Orcs monster was the leader of the Orcs monster army. Their leader, the Red Orcs, led his troops to attack the main character and his skeleton troops, but with a calm attitude, the main character directed his troops to move to carry out the strategy he had prepared. The main character and Righty take positions at the back of the troops. Before the main character gives the signal to the skeleton troops, he analyzes the surrounding environment. When the main character gives the signal to the skeleton troops to prepare to attack, he leaves a message for his skeleton troops to remember. If they turn to dust when the Orcs monster army rush to attack the skeleton army, a system window appears indicating that Bus Madness has been activated. The base Madness skill increases attack and speed increases by 20% in a span of 10 minutes. A war broke out between the skeleton troops and the Orcs monster troops. Skeleton troops can defeat several Orcs monsters easily. However, when the skeleton army attacked the Red Orcs monster, the monster swiftly repelled the skeleton's attack. Then the skeleton troops carried out attacks and attacks from above the strategy. This attack is usually very powerful, but the Red Olks monster can repel the skeleton's attacks. The Olks monster became very angry and carried out repeated attacks on the skeleton. Righty, who was behind the troops, became very eager to carry out the attack. However, the main character told Righty to be patient and wait his turn. The Olks monster also felt that it could win the attack. However, the monsters were shocked by the resurrection of their corpses. The system window appeared and said that the main cast power had activated corpse resurrection and became his army. For your information, the troops that had previously been defeated have now been resurrected with the strength of the main character and become part of the skeleton army. As we know now, the main character has the ability to summon medium-sized monsters. The attack strategy prepared by the main actor results in the activation of synergy effects. Synergy effect, this increases attack power and attack by 15% for 10 minutes. The main character then orders the Olks who have risen to fight the monster army. Even though they were attacked, the Olks who had risen were still bleeding, but they did not feel tired and would be reborn. After they die, that is the power of a necromancer. From a distance, there are people who are still safe. Watching the battle between the main character and hundreds of Olks monsters, they couldn't believe what they had seen. They didn't expect that the main character could defeat the entire Olks monster army alone. They also wonder who is the person who could defeat all the enemies. Meanwhile, the main actor's friends who were on the bus were very amazed by the greatness of the main actor. Jisoo realized that the main character had taken everything into account. During their previous debate, a system window suddenly appeared and showed that the main character's life had increased drastically. This is the effect given by the legendary item obtained by the main character from the previously selected roulette. This legendary item is very useful for the main character, especially in the current situation. The system window appeared with a notification that the Olks were weakened by the smell of death by 30%, and the fighting spirit of the Olks dropped drastically. This is very beneficial for the main character, so we can see that the main character takes control of this attack. In the midst of the ongoing attack, the main character carries out the next attack. Righty, who had been patiently waiting for his turn, is finally ordered by the main character to join the attack and beat Olks with his tongue. As we previously knew, Righty is the main character's trusted skeleton, so it's not surprising that Righty's skills are the best. After finishing defeating all the remaining Olks monster troops, only the leader of the troop is the Red Olks. The main character also instructed Righty to end the attack immediately. Even the troop leader, the Red Olks monster, was easily defeated by Righty quickly. The system window appears and it can be seen that the main character gets a roulette ticket for defeating 100 monsters. What the main character receives is a rank upgrade to become the 21st player out of 100. The main players also wondered what kind of people are ranked 20 and above. The main character suspects that the ranking applies to people in all parts of the world. While the main character was thinking, suddenly he was startled by a fast-moving bus and wondered who was driving the bus. The bus drove quickly towards the gym building. Annoyed, the main character asked, who was the fool who ruined the escape without cultivating the presence of a leader who could attack them at any time? It turns out that the student council members and student council president had been captured by a herd of Olks monsters. They were scared to death and begged to be saved. The main character becomes increasingly annoyed that the situation is getting worse and says that they should not have taken such careless actions and just stayed on the bus. When the main character arrives at the gym, he also met his friends and they said that they would join in the fight and at least able to protect themselves. The main character, who is still annoyed, says that fighting alone is much easier and reminds his friends not to get in the way of his skeleton army. When the main character arrived in the game, he saw many goblin corpses hanging from the ceiling. Manhwa was disgusted to see the interior design, which was full of monster corpses. At the end of the room, the main character sees a figure and asks if the monster is the leader of the Olk squad. After the main character feels sure that the monster is the leader of the squad, he then urges his friends to stay focused, because they are going to fight the boss monster. Showing the student council group being held hostage, the main character is grateful because they are still alive even though they are battered. However, the main character is amazed that the Olks monster has enough intelligence to devise a plan by taking his friends hostage. The student council president, who was aware of the whereabouts of the main character, shouted and asked the main character for help to save them. The student council president begged the main character to save himself. The main character couldn't stand the behavior of the student council president and scolded him for being ready to die as a risk of endangering everyone. In this situation, the main character cannot promise to save everyone there because he is not confident in his ability to fight against the boss monster. The main character also orders everyone to fight, and in his mind, the main character knows that if he shows weakness, it will only make the situation worse and devises a strategy to save the OSIS genes. When they were about to fight, suddenly the boss monster did something and shocked everyone. The main cast and Jisoo are getting annoyed, wondering what is he doing. Then the boss monster released its power, and as a result, all the energy of the people there weakened. Everyone, including Jisoo, is getting weaker and more helpless, so they can't fight. The system window appeared, and it was seen that they had entered a state called confusion. In this situation, their lives decrease drastically. Then the form of a boss monster appears. The boss monster is a high-level type of monster, namely the Dark Summon Orc Shift. Hanho immediately took the potion and drank it. When Hanho offered the potion to the main character, he was surprised by the main character. The main character was not affected at all by the boss monster's dark magic. The main character refused the potion that Hanho offered and told him to just give the potion to Jisoo. In contrast to what his friends felt, the main character actually felt that his strength was recovering. The appearance of the system window surprised the main cast, because the lives of the main characters increased drastically to reach 4,000. It turns out that the effect of the boss monster's power, namely the Bride of, is exhausted, causing the awakening of State 1. Temporarily, it increases the maximum number of main cast skeleton troops to 50. The monster boss was surprised that the effect the main character got was different from the others. Jisoo has also recovered after drinking the potion. Hanho shouted that he was ready to fight. This reminded him of the fight the three of them had on the roof. The main character refuses Jisoo's request and wants to fight against the boss monster alone. The main character also activates his power, which can resurrect enemy corpses and become his troops. Skeleton troops began to appear and attack the boss monsters in greater numbers than before. A system window appears showing the various types of monsters that have been raised by the main character. Among them are Murim Warrior Range, Warrior Barbarian, Warrior Range, and 3, and then all types of monsters activate this power. And Jisoo was surprised by the strength of the main character. They felt afraid and amazed by the appearance of various types of monsters in very large numbers. This design shows that the main character's fighting appearance has changed thanks to the power he gained. The battle between the boss monster and the skeleton army begins. The boss monster easily beat one of the skeleton troops to pieces. However, the skeleton that has been destroyed can rise again in a matter of time and immediately attack the boss monster. Quickly, the boss monster was able to defeat the skeleton, but again and again, the skeleton got back up. Every time the boss monster beats him, and it makes the boss monster even more frustrated. The main character, whose appearance has changed into a monster figure, says to the boss monster, "You understand now? The situation you are currently experiencing, no matter how much you struggle, there will always be something you cannot avoid, namely death." The monster looks scared when he hears the main character's words and tries to run away from the fight. The skeleton troops had blocked the boss monster's path. In his mind, the main character said that the boss monster was stupid for what he had just done. The main character said the boss monster wants to escape from its death. The boss monster had no other choice but to continue fighting, even though he knew that he was outnumbered by the skeleton army. The skeleton troops attack the boss monster simultaneously. When the main character realizes that the boss monster is helpless, he then gave the order to the righty to carry out the final attack. For defeating the boss monster, by defeating the boss monster, the main character also gets gold amounting to 1,055. After successfully defeating the boss monster, absorb magical power from the boss monster and experience an increase in defense power and leadership power. Then the main character muttered, "It seems like I thought the increase was experienced by my skeleton army." The main character also looks at Righty's status, and it can be seen in the following panel that Righty currently has level 3 and is carrying Japanese World. In the middle, the main character saw the status of the righty. Hanho said there was something coming out of the boss monster's mouth. The main character rushed to take something, and it turned out to be an item. When the main character wants to take the item, there is a warning that the item contains devil trade. Then a system appears that says if the main character takes the item, several things will have to be sacrificed. Then the main character muttered, "The devil's power is similar to the power of a necromancer," so the main character took the item, and it was stated in the item information that the name of the item was Devil Bloodstone with Legend Grade. When the main character takes the item, all the power of the Bride of Skill is deactivated. Then the scene changes to show the outside of the gym building. The main character and his friends enter the gym and they are greeted by Krokok. As usual, these Krokos fawn and praise the main actor and invite the main actor to work together in the future. The main character also muttered, "It would be better for me to complete the quest alone rather than inviting these people." Then the scene changes to show a system window that locks the area. Then suddenly the system window split and the area was passable. With this incident, people thought about immediately leaving the school area. Then a scene is shown in the area outside the school. In that area, there was a crowd of people, and the two buses behind the main character had people gossiping about the main character. They also checked their cell phones and muttered, "How are their parents?" The main character also felt sad after hearing what his parents said. Suddenly, a bus approached the two of them. It turned out that it was the bus driver who approached them at the beginning, and the bus driver was a military force. He also invited the main character and Hanho to get on the bus. The main character politely refused, and then the super bus shouted that anyone who wanted to enter the bus could enter it because there were 2 buses that could accommodate all the survivors. The bus driver said goodbye to the main character and main character, as well as Hanho. And the skeleton army saw the departure of the 2 buses. Hanho also asked Jisoo where was he going, and Hanho also asked, "Where is Jisoo's house?" Jisoo also answered that she lived in the school dormitory. Then shyly, Jisoo asked the main character if she could follow him even though she knew that he wasn't much help. The main character was happy to accept Jisoo into the team, and he said that Jisoo helped a lot. Hanho also said that he didn't need to ask because he was definitely accepted into the team. The main character with a straight face said to Hanho that he would be accepted if he wanted to become one of the skeleton troops, because when Hanho joined the skeleton army, he got a synergy list, so he was scared. Suddenly, Jisoo pushed Hanho and the main character to duck. Then the panel shows that there is a monster that has very large wings. The 3 of them were very surprised to see the monster. The panel moves to show a person braking a vehicle. The person is the bus driver who is driving the bus. It turns out that there is not just one monster, and the monster is stalking the bus in the distance. The main character was very surprised after seeing the new system window appear. The system appeared and said that there was a field boss called Wiper Alphamole, and it was a dragon. Then the scene shows a group of dragon monsters wanting to take the bus that was passing by, being lifted into the air and immediately destroyed by the field monster. The main character muttered, saying that he was not strong enough to fight the boss monster. But he has determination, he will be stronger than now. The main character also told Jisoo, "We cannot avoid this monster, but we will hunt the monster." And Jisoo was very surprised by what the main character said. The main character also said that we must be able to immediately adapt to the surrounding environment. He added that we will change our focus to hunting stronger monsters. The main character mutters to himself he believes that humans will regain control of civilization in the world. He also clenched his fists and was excited that we would be able to control the whole world again. Then the main characters, Jisoo and Hanho, continue their journey. This is where the exciting adventure of the main characters, Hanho and Jisoo, will soon begin. Because they had successfully passed the Zine tutorial phase, it showed that the city was empty and not a single person was active outside the building. Then there was a footstep that was running in a hurry. It turned out that the footsteps belonged to a goblin. A goblin was abandoned by his flock. Suddenly, a scene was shown that a goblin was ready to be attacked by a skeleton army. The goblins who were hiding could only see the horror of this incident. Then it is shown in more detail regarding the outline shape of the skeleton orb. The goblins felt frightened and immediately ran in a random direction. At the place where the goblins were going, it turned out that the road had been blocked and the goblins could not pass through. The one blocking the road is the main character, and a system appears that says that our main character gets 10 gold from hunting a goblin. Then the skeleton troops were ready to surround the goblin from behind. The goblins had nowhere to run. The scene also shows the tragedy of the skeleton troops. Then the panel shows that this incident was very tragic, and the main character also got a lot of gold after successfully surrounding the goblins. In this way, the main character managed to level up to level 6. Hanho approached the main character and said, "Why is the main character doing it alone?" And the main character doesn't seem tired of doing this. Meanwhile, Hanho was very, very tired. The main character also said to Hanho that by hunting goblins there was not much that could be done, because the main character doesn't need to intervene to stop the goblin because the skeleton army is now very strong to hunt a goblin. It is shown that the main character is choosing a level up card because the main character has successfully leveled up to level 6. The card chosen by the main character is a card with a power description. After the main character chooses the card, the current status of the main character is shown. The main character has 8 powers. Agility is 5, stamina is 5, and the total gold of the main character is now 5,837. After the main character chooses a power card, he feels a huge difference in power in his left hand. Then the main character and Hanho enter a building. It turns out the main character was approaching Jisoo, who was hunting in another area. Jisoo said that she had finished hunting 9 goblins, and he was very grateful for the help from the skeleton troops. After hearing Jisoo's explanation, the main character told Hanho to take the deckers. Hanho also put the decker into the icebox with the skeletons. The main character also said to Jisoo and Hanho that they had to change their hunting targets because they no longer hunted goblin monsters. They were shocked and asked, "Why do we have to change our hunting monsters?" Jisoo said that means the main character's desire is to find stronger monsters, right? The main character answered very confidently, He said Jisu's words were true when comparing the amount of gold obtained by hunting people compared to hunting goblins. The main character can also judge that hunting is much more profitable than hunting monsters. Goblins, on the other hand, gain more XP from hunting stronger monsters than hunting weaker monsters. Stronger monsters will definitely give you more gold. This is very profitable for players. The main character continues his journey through the city. There were skeleton troops on standby all around. The three of them commented on the current state of the city, like in the zombie films he had watched. And he said, "Isn't that a military car?" Then the scene was moved to show military troops and their cars, and there were lots of corpses of military troops lying around. The main character muttered to himself, "Has there been a fight here before?" The main characters also feel that someone is watching them from behind the vehicle. Then the person appears and asks the main character, "Are you a human?" Trembling, the military troops also asked, "Isn't that a monster behind you?" The main character answered very casually while channeling his sword that he was a human. Immediately, the military troops called their superiors that they had found a human in the area. The main character was invited by military troops to approach his superiors. This is the superior of the military troops, and his name is Sergeant Kim. Kim said that the situation now was very, very serious and he couldn't leave here. The main character asked, "So you were stabbed in the back by the goblins?" Kim answered, "Yes, that's right. I was stabbed by the goblin monster, but we managed to beat them." The main character was surprised. He asked, "Did you defeat them without using weapons?" Kim also explained that weapons equipment could no longer be used in the current state of the world. Kim added that their weapons could not be used for shooting. He also emphasized that their weapons could not be used and that none of the military forces knew why this happened. And because of that, many military troops only relied on swords and hoes. I also felt sorry for the state of the game's scientists, and he also offered that he had a bottle of potion. Kim got up from his seat. After seeing Hanho holding the potion, he said that he saw the player holding the patient. He gasped for breath and asked the main character to give him the potion. The main character also explains with a heavy heart that this patient is very important in the current world situation. And Sergeant Kim said, "What if we barter?" Ensign also asked Sergeant Kim what could he offer to the main character. Kim says that he has some information, and he asks if that amount of information is enough to exchange for a fusion. He also explained to the main character all the information he already knew. The first information given was that there were wolves with bodies the size of bulls. No military force could defeat the wolf. The second information from Kim's scientists said that there was a QR code that could be scanned via cell phone. After listening to these two pieces of information, Hanho and Jisu often looked at each other. Sergeant Kim also added that he had seen two QR codes so far. The first QR code is in the parking area at the end of this road, and the second kit is in the transfer center area in the train area. Sergeant Kim said, "Try scanning the QR code and an application will automatically be installed." And the game also says that that is the only communication that can be used in this era. After listening to these two pieces of information, the main character gives the percentage to Sergeant. Game Searching also asked after receiving the patient, where would they go because the military troops would return to the bus. The main character asks, "Do you think that getting back on the bus was the right choice?" Dan felt that your base was the safest place in this era, saying that when he first started studying, a high-ranker player appeared and took all the weapons. I also feel that this will not happen in the current situation. He wanted to check the condition of the bus again and also take the weapons on the bus, and the main character interrupted Sergeant Kim's words. And he said that he had to leave this area immediately. The main character gave information to Sergeant Kim to be careful in the air. And the main character said that there were a group of dragons that often flew in the air. Upon hearing the information from the main character, the military troops and Sergeant Kim immediately felt pale, and Kim and his troops left the area. The main character and his friends continue their journey through the city area. After arriving at the end of the road, the main character managed to find one of the QR codes that Sergeant Kim meant. The main character immediately scanned the QR code. Hanho said and warned the main character to be careful because he was afraid that the application might contain a virus. The main character answered, "Who cares about the virus? Now because the world situation is very, very chaotic." After installing the application, the main character adds a serial number, namely code 157. With level 6 on the application, there are 7 points displayed. The first is notice, the second is player and king. The third is public posts, fourth is auctions, and the fifth is vaccines. The sixth is the angel faction, and the last is personal. Then you can see the main character clicking on one of these options. The scene shows that there is a notification from the administrator. This administrator can also be said to be a game master. The administrator said that there were 2,967,821 people who had successfully passed the first phase of job selection. For people who have not chosen the joke card, they will be given a second chance, namely 3 days from now, and the main character mutters, who is the real person behind all this. The main character also saw and clicked on the post factory, and it turned out that there was not a single post in the public post. Jisoo also said that if we want to write a post, then we are required to pay 1,000 gold. Hearing the words 1,000 gold, Hanho was very surprised, and he calculated that he would have to kill 100 goblins to make one post. The main character also saw something strange, namely that there was a group of people with a total of 8 levels saying that they had prepared chef areas in several places. And there was a person who received the fishing rod, and he asked, "Where should we go?" The person answered that he just needed to wait at the park complex and he would pick him up as soon as possible. He also reiterated that he cannot provide answers all the time, because giving the answer requires spending some gold. Hanho also said that Hanho's apartment was near his house, and the main character also asked whether we should check this. The main character also muttered it was very easy for them to spend 1,000 gold to make a post, and he said that we had just reached level 6 and they had already reached level 8. Immediately, the main character felt this was very strange. However, he thinks logically that the current situation forces us to gather with a stronger group. The main character and his skeleton army rushed to the area mentioned in the post. Then the author deleted several comments on his post, and this makes some people feel strange. The main character feels the same way. And this is the person who made the post. From what we noticed, this person was no longer human, by showing 2 very long fangs. The scene shows that the city is at dusk and the sun is soon setting, and there is a goblin who is attacking someone. The scene shows that the person succeeded in hitting the goblin. It turned out that the person was not only attacked by a goblin, but he was also surrounded by a herd of goblin monsters. Shout for help from people around you. The person looked towards the window and said, "Is there anyone there at least? Help my only child." The person's scream made the goblin monsters attack the person again. Then suddenly a dagger stuck into the goblin monster. The other goblin monsters were shocked by Dagger's sudden attack. They didn't realize that the skeleton troops were ready to attack them from behind one by one. The goblin monster was defeated, and the person who had asked for help could only watch the incident. The person looked back because someone was calling him. It was none other than the main character, and he reached out his hand to help the person up. The person explains to the main character that he only came out to look for food because the food supply in his house had run out. The person's house turned out to be near the complex area. The main character also offered food that the main character had brought in his bag. Jisoo, Hanho, and Righty chased the remaining goblin monsters. The goblin monster ran towards the stairs and looked around. Hanho and Jisoo agreed that they were idiots who were just running to find their death. Apparently, the goblin monster was running. The person asked the main character, should we chase the goblin monsters and defeat them? The main character's face felt shock after seeing the symbol in front of him, and he felt that it was the symbol of the hidden dungeon. Suddenly, when the main character wanted to enter the dungeon, the person who had been helped by the main character came and worried the main character. He told the main character not to enter the dungeon, which led to the basement. He said that below there were monsters more terrifying than the goblin troops. The main character also thanked the person, and the main character was not afraid, but instead he was excited, because he will meet a new type of monster. After the main character enters the dungeon, suddenly the system appears and says, "You have entered a unique dungeon called Elder Slime Holloland." Then the scene shows that the 3 of them are running from something. The person said to the main character, "Thank you for giving him very, very important information." The main character answered Hanho's words and told Hanho to bite his tongue and run quickly. To leave this dungeon, they suddenly stopped after seeing a lump of slime in front of them. The main character also told Hanho to calm down. It's just a small blob of slime. The main character orders his skeleton troops to slaughter the slimes. It turns out that we can know from the results of hunting that one small slime produces 140 gold. The main character took the tiger, and he said that the smell of the slime was very strong and the slime could make iron rust. After seeing Digger's condition from Hanho, the main character was grateful that the slime had no effect on the bones of the skeleton army. While trembling, pointing behind him, he told the main character to take over fighting the monster. Suddenly, something surprising happened behind Hanho. The system appeared and said that a boss monster had appeared, and the boss monster was named Elder Slime. The boss monster managed to devour the skeleton army. More precisely, the skeleton orcs easily killed the skeleton troops. And the system appears that your troops have headed to eternal death. The main character was shocked by the incident he had just seen. Due to the very flexible nature of the slime, the skeleton troops trapped in it cannot do anything. The main character continues to think of ways to attack the boss monster. The main character decides to produce bones to use to attack the boss monster. The main character decides to attack the boss monster using the nearest skeleton. The plan is to turn the skeleton into a bound weapon to stab the boss monster. Jisoo also took the bones from the remains of the previous fight. He immediately threw the bones at the main character. The main character also turns all the bones into a weapon using the main character's skill of producing bond weapon basic. It turns out that the bones attack didn't work on the boss monster, and instead the boss monster launched its attack on the main character. The main character and his friends were knocked back by attacks from the boss monster. It turns out that the attack from the boss monster did not hit the main character, but instead hit the skeleton in front of him. Then a system appears that says that your skeleton army has headed to eternal death. When the boss monster eats the main character's troops, the main character grinned and said that the boss monster made a mistake. The main character also deliberately makes the boss monster eat his troops so he can produce weapon skills. The main character activates his skill, namely producing bond weapons, and suddenly all the bones appear from inside the boss monster's stomach. When the boss monster was receiving attacks from the main character immediately ordered his skeleton troops to attack the boss monster as usual. For the final finish, the righty took over and he executed at the end of the monster post. Then a system window appears saying that you have successfully defeated the Elder Slime and got 20,255 gold. The main character immediately ordered the skeleton troops to put the slime into empty bottles. The main character mutters to himself. He says that the liquid from this slime will be useful one day because this slime liquid has very strong corrosion properties. When the main character was collecting the slime, he saw that there was a Corvus monster lying around. The main character immediately took the cord, and the cord was called Elder Slime Core with Great Rare. Manhwa was checking his cell phone and he told the main character to immediately check the comments on the application. Manhwa said, "Why were these comments deleted by the author?" And Manhwa said to the main character, "Isn't this very strange?" The main character also mutters that there is more than one person behind this incident, and they are willing to strengthen these comments and give 1,000 gold. So here the author collaborates with people or subordinates to strengthen comments so that people don't hesitate to fall into their trap. The main character also came to the conclusion that he didn't want to bother with this incident. The scene shifts to show a building and a perfect full moon above it. Then the scene looks at the basement, and it turns out there are 3 people discussing. One of the people says, "Why do people hunt monsters even though if they kill humans they will get 5,000 gold and also get 1,000 golds from each level?" The player's friend also answered that it was very true, and on the other hand, catching humans was very, very easy. And his friend grinned again and answered that the sensation of killing people was very enjoyable. The person turned his gaze towards the person in the car. Then the muscular person asked his brother, "So who is the boss we serve?" The person bit his finger and did very strange behavior and held his head. His friend asked, "Is there something wrong?" Suddenly the person had turned into a monster, showing his very long fangs. He said, "Red Professor," while clenching his teeth. His friend asked, "Wasn't that one of the bastards in the TV series?" Then he remembered the incident that made him who he is today. The panel also shows a flashback scene in the person's mind. There is a hand that manages to kill people, and that person is wearing a uniform. So here we don't know who this person is, and it turns out that this person hasn't turned into a monster. He was shaking and afraid. He also stammered saying monster toward that person. The person said it looked like the world would end like this, and this was the appearance of the monster. He said, "I need some arms and some legs." After saying that, he grinned, showing his 2 fangs at the person. Then the scene was moved to show the current situation. The main character called Manhwa, and Manhwa answered, "What's wrong?" The main character with a firm gaze asked Manhwa, "Can he kill a human?" The scene was moved back to the person's flashback incident. The system window appeared and said that he had become a part of the vampire and his position had been changed to low-class vampire. So after looking at this system, we can know that the monster above is a vampire. Then returning to the current situation, he muttered, "Why did I become like this?" And his friend, shaking, said, "Why have you changed like this?" He also muttered he originally only came to the convenience store and wanted to take some materials from the gangster. And that person was already unconscious and had turned into a vampire. He then unconsciously attacked his friend, and his friend, while shaking, said, "Someone please save me." He was also possessed by the thoughts of the vampire boss. The vampire boss said this blood was still not enough for him. Then the vampire attacked his own friend. The vampire boss was behind him and he felt very happy. Seeing this incident, the vampire at that location muttered that the taste of blood was very sweet. The vampire boss said, "Grow faster, and when the time comes, I will come to see you." It turns out that this incident only happened in that person's mind. His friend shouted at the vampire and broke his reverie. The vampire said, "What is it?" And his friend showed his cell phone that their prey had arrived, and if you looked closely, it turned out that the person who replied to the comment was Co-157, which belonged to the main character in the series. The main character said that he had arrived in the middle of the park and he was waiting for a pickup from them. The vampire immediately stepped on the gas pedal, and he said that the 17th nation had come. He muttered to himself that the apartment was in an open area and it was very easy to attract people to gather. In the middle of the garden, he also muttered that the people in the apartment already knew about the incident, but they remained indifferent, because it's not in his business. He also muttered in his heart, he said those people didn't realize that they had been trapped in this scenario. They don't realize that they will be the next prey. His friend also confirmed to the vampire that he had seen their target right in front of them. Putting on a very impatient face, the vampire muttered, "That's blood. That is very fresh blood." His friend also told the vampire to keep pressing the gas pedal. It turns out their goal is to hit their prey head-on. When they stopped, they realized that in front of them was a skeleton monster. The main character also uses his skill, namely create basic, and suddenly all the weapons come out of the repetitive bones. Then the scene shows the condition of the car hitting the skeleton. The vampire who was in the car felt pain due to the impact. Suddenly, when he was careless, there was a blow aimed at his head, and then the hand forcibly pulled the vampire out of the car. The vampire got angry and asked, "What exactly is going on?" He was surprised to see someone's hand taking his cell phone. It turns out these people are the main characters with their friends, accompanied by Reddy, who is near the main character. The main character also points his sword at the vampire's head, and he couldn't do anything. The main character also said, "You are the code 4884, and the main character also said that you deliberately trap people and delete people's comments. You deliberately manipulated the poster so that people were trapped in your scenario. The main character also managed to dismantle the scenario, and instead the main character lured them out. Jisoo also said that it turns out there are people like this in the current situation. And Hanho said while shaking, "It turns out the world is much scarier now." The main character also said that he didn't expect them to crash straight away. The main character bluntly, and the vampire gritted his teeth and said that you don't know who we are. Quickly, the main character kicked the vampire in the face. It turns out that the vampire's friend has been taken hostage by the skeletons, and he struggled to call his friend. The main character also threatens the vampire to tell the truth. The main character asks, "How many subordinates do you have? If you don't answer honestly, I will kill you immediately." The vampire laughed at the main character's words. He immediately attacks the main character, and you can see here that the vampire's appearance has clearly changed. Righty deftly immediately lunged at the vampire. Righty managed to apply his attack towards the vampire. The vampire then realized that Righty had succeeded in cutting off his hand. The vampire's friend was very surprised. After learning the fact that his friend was a vampire, the main character emphasized that in the current state of the world, he would not hesitate to kill people like him. Then immediately the skeleton orb attacked the vampire again and again. The skeleton orc army was ready to lift the ship. The main character muttered to himself as the vampire lost consciousness. The main character immediately turned to his vampire friend and said, "How about I start with you? Which is better? Should I start from your hands or from your feet?" The vampire's friend also said he had 8 subordinates. Before he finished speaking, he received an attack from somewhere. It turns out the attack came from a vampire who had managed to revive. Hanno was very surprised after seeing this incident. On the other hand, Jisoo was also shocked because she really couldn't believe that he attacked his own friend. Here we can see that the hand that was cut off by Reddy has become very sharp, and this hand is used to stab his friend. Then the vampire immediately drank the blood of his own friend. He laughed out loud after drinking fresh blood from his friend, and he said, "This is very good and tastes very delicious." The main character also shouted at the vampire that he did something very crazy. Then it is shown that a system appears on the vampire. After he consumed blood, his XP increased drastically, and he gained a strength increase of 2 agility by 1. He also said that his main job before becoming a vampire was a ninja with 3 stars. Then everything changed when the vampire boss bit his neck. He also turned into a low-class vampire. He explains that once you become a vampire, your level will be locked at a maximum of 1 and you will not be able to level up. According to him, this is not a barrier. He also added by killing humans and drinking human blood, you will also get XP. From what you saw just now, after drinking human blood, the vampire became very strong and changed to have a trend of 14, agility of 13, and stamina of 13. This phase is also called the wild state, and the overall power of the status will increase by 20%. After the wild step phase, 10 hours later, there will be a penalty deduction of 50 from all the starts obtained. After seeing that, the main character also thinks that being a vampire is a very bad thing. The main character also told Hanho and Jisoo to immediately retreat. If we make a wrong move, we will die in 1 attack. The main character also signaled to the skeleton troops to immediately attack swiftly. The skeleton army immediately attacked the vampire. The vampire muttered and said that the skeleton also had speed. He also said that the skeletons stopped by to defend the defense. The vampire managed to attack the skeletons one by one very easily. He quickly killed the skeletons one by jumping here and there. The vampire also managed to find the person who controlled the skeleton troops. He quickly attacked the main character. The vampire immediately launched his attack and almost hit the main character, and he said, "It turns out you were behind in controlling the skeletons all this time." Just before the vampire's pointed arm hit Sung Woo, someone came with a long sword to block the vampire's attack. Suddenly, the vampire was shocked and annoyed by the attack. When the vampire looked back, it turned out that the one who attacked him just now was Jisoo. The vampire also said sarcastically that Jisoo was not a weak bride, but more like a lioness. Then he continued excitedly that he would taste Jisoo's blood first. Suddenly, right behind the vampire appeared various flashes of light. The flashes were weapons flying towards the vampire. It turned out that the weapons belonged to Hanho, who wanted to take part in the attack. With confidence, Hanho continued to fight back by throwing his weapons at the vampire. Even vampires feel irritated by throwing weapons from a noob. He felt that Hanho was just an insect. Then the vampire immediately fought back and quickly ran towards Hanho. Hanho was frightened and surprised by the speed of the vampire. Just before the vampire's blow hit Hanho, Righty arrived, who swiftly blocked the vampire's blow. Righty then launched his sword attack at the vampire, and the vampire was quickly able to dodge. From behind, Sung Woo starts to attack, but unfortunately the vampire knows where Sung Woo is and immediately attacks him. The shield that Sung Woo uses to protect himself is broken in two as a result of the vampire's attack. Sung Woo, who is increasingly cornered, begins to lose his mind about carrying out his descent. Meanwhile, the vampire is increasingly confident in defeating Sung Woo and his friends. The vampire also said that the young teenagers should give up because they were all very weak. Suddenly, Jisoo comes ready to attack the vampire with her sword. Jisoo's sword attack released flames, but the vampire was able to dodge the attack. While laughing, he said that Jisoo's movements were very clear, therefore he easily dodged her attacks. Righty came suddenly and surprised the vampire. It turned out that the vampire was unable to avoid Righty's attack and again easily injured the vampire's arm until it was seriously injured. From a distance, Sung Woo gave orders to the skeleton army to attack the vampires simultaneously. Then comes a group of troops from the vampire's side who try to help attack Sung Woo and his friends. The vampire laughed and thought that he had surrounded Sung Woo and his friends. But the group couldn't believe what they saw. They were surprised by the shape of the vampire's arm. While the vampire was distracted because his entourage, Jisoo quickly attacked and managed to cut off the vampire's arm. Then one by one the skeletons started attacking the vampires. The skeletons surrounded the vampire from all directions. Suddenly there was a sudden attack that made the vampire's head pierced. The one who stabbed the vampire's head was Sung Woo, who was assisted by the skeletons. Quickly, he immediately slashed the vampire's head. With the success of Sung Woo killing the vampire, a system window appears that says, "You have successfully killed a level 1 player and received 1,000 gold." Seeing the system notification, he was very surprised because killing humans could get gold. Sung Woo turned his gaze towards the gang and said, "So you guys are doing all this just for the gold?" Jisoo and Hanho were surprised to see the contents of the trunk of the car they were carrying. It turned out that the contents of the car were piles of corpses of players. Immediately, Sung Woo ordered his skeleton troops to surround the gang. He asked in a very angry tone, "So you're a group with level 8 people, right?" They answered haltingly. They said, "That's right, that's us." Sung Woo very angrily said, "Drop your weapons. Otherwise, I will slaughter you all right now." Immediately, they dropped their weapons. The panel also shows a burnt-out car, and it turns out Sung Woo is interrogating one of the gangs. Sung Woo asked, "Is it true that you guys don't know your boss?" He answered with fear that he was just following all his brother's instructions, and he was very surprised after seeing the fact that his brother was a vampire. He was muttering, so their boss was the one causing all this chaos? What is their boss's job? Is the boss's job up to 5 stars or even more? I'm sure people with great power are just playing around. Sung Woo also asked them, "So how many people have you killed?" Terrified, one of them said around 21 or maybe 22. Sung Woo looked at them very angry. He also instructed his skeleton to immediately slaughter them all. A message from the system appears showing that Sung Woo has earned a lot of gold from killing. Players Hanho and Jisoo immediately climbed to the name of the main actor, and they were very surprised to see what the main actor did. Sung Woo answered firmly that if we don't do this, they will kill more people in the future. Jisoo bowed her head and said, "Yes, I agree with what you said." The scene changes to show a military car parked in front of the building. It is possible that this building was a military headquarters. You can see the contents of someone's cell phone screen who was viewing messages from the community. It turned out that the person was a game surgeon who was checking his cell phone screen. He also focused on one of the contents of the message, which said that KO 1057, namely Sung Woo, had succeeded in defeating the gang who trapped the people who wanted to meet Sung Woo. And that person also asked about the skeleton that Sung Woo was carrying. After that, Sergeant Kim grinned and said, as I expected, it was them. They did extraordinary things. Sergeant Kim's subordinates appeared out of nowhere and invited Sergeant Kim to gather immediately. Sergeant Kim immediately wrote a comment to the community. The content of the comment is that they are really cool and I have met them. Sergeant Kim also didn't forget to remind Sung Woo to be careful. With a wolf the size of a bull, and the comments below also praise the goodness of Sung Woo. Then the scene is moved to a building that already looks destroyed. There was a person holding his cell phone and he said after seeing the message from the community, it was a great deed. He also emphasized that he was very grateful because in this broken world there were still good people like that. Then he rushed out of the building and said to his friends, "Can we start too?" Then the scene changes. You can see the streets of an abandoned city. Hanova checked his cell phone and said that there was a new message in the community. It turns out that the message category is free post, so they are free to comment on this post and the maximum number of comments is 200. The purpose of creating this free post is for those who have lost their families and to share information with each other at a time when the world is in ruins. Jisoo also said, the dominant comments are about people looking for their families. Sung Woo's also read the comments one by one. And Hanho also said that the person who was saved by Sung Woo thanked Sung Woo through a message in the community. Sung Woo also seemed uncomfortable with that and he said, I don't care about things like that. It looks like twilight in the afternoon. Finally, Sung Woo and his friends arrived in front of the apartment where Hanho lives. And Sung Woo says it's your house. Meanwhile, with fear, he said, finally I have arrived home. Then Hanho looked scared and said, I hope my parents are okay. Hanho said to his friends, my house is at the top. Sung Woo answered, okay, let's go there. Slowly on their way up, they saw many Olk's corpses lying along the road. Hanho continued to offer his prayers. After arriving in front of the apartment where Hanho lived, number 202, he was very surprised because he saw a cut mark on Hanho's door. Hanho shouted for his parents and said that he had come home. Suddenly the door opened. This is the face of Hanho's parents. They were very grateful that Hanho was safe, and they didn't expect that Hanho would look for them. After that night arrived, Hanho, who was eating, was surprised because his parents didn't have any. Hanho also said, why didn't Dad take one of the cards? Because his father often played card games. His father answered, he didn't dare take the card because it was different from the cards he usually played. Hanho was annoyed with his father and said that his father's hesitation was what often made his father lose at card games. In between, Sung Woo interrupted their conversation and asked, so how did you survive the Olk's monster attack? Because the monster was seen also attacking other apartment rooms, Hanho's father bravely said, I sprayed F-Killer to drive them all away. Nor did he believe what Hanho's father said. Hanho's father sprayed F-Killer to make the Olk's monsters stay away from them. Hanho choked and couldn't believe what he heard. Sung Woo does too, and said that it was an unexpected idea. Then they continued talking until late at night. Hanho's mother thanked Sung Woo for being able to bring Hanho back safely and didn't forget to give green tea to the three of them. Jisoo felt bad and said that it wasn't a problem. Meanwhile, Sung Woo immediately took the tea that had been given. Hanho also assured his mother that he was not a burden, and it also helps a lot in fighting monsters. However, Hanho's mother seemed to already know her son's character, so he told Hanho to be quiet. Hanko's mother said that they could take a shower and use the hot water, which was still working. As scene changes, there are people who are monitoring the surroundings and find that the room in Hanho's apartment at night has light. They grinned and felt that they had new prey. Then the scene is shown to the condition of the bathroom at home. Came out of the bathroom and said that he had finished showering. Hanho and Sung Woo were surprised after seeing Jisoo's feminine face because they usually see Jisoo, who is very serious. Jisoo also said thank you for lending her sleepwear. Hanho's mother interjected and said that Jisoo had a beautiful body shape and asked how she took care of her body. Hanho weakly, and with a heavy heart, told his mother that Jisoo was 30 times stronger than him. Judging from this scene, Reddy was stroking Hanho to comfort him. Then the shower was turned on. It turns out that the one who gets to take a shower now is Sung Woo. He muttered that he hadn't cleaned himself in a long time after the world changed. He continued muttering, I'm grateful that Hanho's parents are safe from danger. He also realized that Olks didn't like the smell of killer. Sung Woo also thinks that a lot of people died during the journey here. Still continuing to mumble, being able to be united with family in circumstances like this is the happiest thing. Sung Woo also noticed Hanho, who was joking with Righty. Sung Woo shows he is just sad thinking about his family. After that, all dirty clothes are placed in the machine. The three of them, Jisoo and Sung Woo, are sharpening their swords. Hanho also broke the silence by asking Jisoo and Sungwoo, "Do you think we will stay here?" Sungwoo answered, "We will continue our journey to the next destination." Sungwoo also emphasized that there are Olks who always monitor the lyrics, and you believe that the Olks would bring a larger army. Sungwoo also muttered, "Until now, I still don't know where to go." Hanho said, "Try looking into the community." Jisoo said that there were people who wrote comments that convinced them they posted posts about save areas. And he said that one of his superiors had the job of Pioneer, which was 3 stars, and his skill could form a zone where monsters could not enter the area he created. Jisoo said, "Can we trust them?" Hanho also felt doubtful about the post. Sungwoo also felt doubtful because there are many bad people who take advantage of world conditions like this. They looked at each other. Sungwoo explains the possibility of the save area, which is said to be true. In today's world, there are many types of jobs. And Sungwoo's skill said, "Yesterday we just found out that if we do comments, we have to pay 1,000 gold. But now we can comment freely in this community." This indicates that changes are occurring very quickly in the current situation. Sungwoo tells his friends to be more careful. Paying attention to the comments column on the post, you can see there are many positive comments on the post. Both saw the comments and he said that many people believe that. Jisoo also said the same thing. Sungwoo also gave his opinion. They are building an image in front of the public with good packaging. People will easily believe and go there. After that, they will get gold because of the arrival of players in large numbers. In this way, the forces will gather at one point and they will collect taxes in the form of gold and potions secretly. Hanho just realized and he said that in the current situation nothing is free. However, Sungwoo only emphasized that it was just his prejudice. Besides, Dempo is also very far from here. But Hanho saw another post. He apparently clicked wrongly and said, "This is not what I meant." Then he quickly replaced it and said, "What about this one?" There is also a save area here, but they have to pay a rental fee for the area. Sungwoo mutters that he is implementing a rental fee, but most importantly, he wants to know the safe area concept that is being widely discussed. Sungwoo also said to Hanho that Suwon was not far from here. Hanho also said he doubted if they would walk, but if they took the bus, it would take 20 minutes. Sungwoo also confidently said that this is our next goal. Hanho rushed to tell his parents to pack so they could come along. Morning arrived, Sungwoo said, "Have you finished packing?" In unison they answered, "We're done." Sungwoo apologizes to Hanho's parents for taking them on a dangerous journey. They answered in unison, "No problem." They said that they believe in Sungwoo because Sungwoo can keep their children safe, so they are confident in following Sungwoo. That Mrs. Hanho also said that it was not only monsters that were disturbing, but there were also robbers appearing recently. Hearing the word robber, the 3 of them were shocked. Dad also said that the robbers were about the age of high school students. They also often rob fellow survivors. Sungwoo also muttered, "At this moment there were gangsters walking around." Suddenly a vehicle is driving towards Sungwoo. These are the robbers that Hanho's father meant. They shouted while approaching Sungwoo. Finally, they stopped right in front of the group of main actors. "Hello, uncle." One of them is called Sungwoo. Hanho and Jisoo felt annoyed after hearing the words of the high school gangsters. Meanwhile, Sungwoo just remained silent while holding back his anger. The high school student said that last night he saw them laughing and talking from the window. "If you have something fun, you should share it," said the high school student. Then one of the boy's friends said, "Didn't you see the number and weapons we brought?" Sungwoo grinned and said, "How many?" Then Sungwoo summons his skeleton army to appear. While they were still bragging about what they brought, the purple-haired woman was surprised by something. They quickly ran away from that place and avoided something. They left Sungwoo and his troops because they saw someone approaching Sungwoo. Jisoo and Hanho wondered, why do they seem to be running away from something? Meanwhile, Sungwoo looked behind him and was shocked by what he saw. Sungwoo also tells them there is a monster approaching them. The 3 of them were very surprised by the monster that approached them. Sungwoo said, "Didn't it turn out that the one approaching them was a wolf monster?" Sungwoo muttered, "A wolf the size of a bull." Sungwoo also muttered, "They didn't attack right away." Sungwoo appealed to Jisoo and Hanho. Because the monster was slowly approaching them, muttered Sungwoo, "Is this the habit of wolves to hunt their prey? It is very dangerous to fight close-range monsters with 44 legs because they have fangs, claws, and strength. So it is very unprofitable to fight them from the front. The monster also has a stable body position. If we fight on land, on the other hand, our position is perpendicular to the ground. Once we fall, it will be difficult for us to regain balance. If we get hit by that attack, it's the end for us." Hanho also asked Sungwoo, "Are we going to stay here?" Sungwoo firmly answered no. Sungwoo said, "If he had the strength, he would have directly fought the wolf by breaking through it." Startled, Hanho asked fearfully, "Then what should we do now?" The wolves are seen preparing to attack Sung Woo's flock quickly. Other wolves also attack the main cast's pack. Suddenly, a bottle of green liquid landed on the wolf monster's head. Manhwa was very surprised and said, "Isn't that the liquid from slime?" With a confident face, Sung Woo said, "Exactly." The wolf rolled over in pain due to being hit by the poisonous liquid from the slime. Sung Woo told Jisoo and Manhwa to immediately throw the liquid at the other monsters. They quickly obeyed Sung Woo's words. There is also an attack from an army of skeletons, Sung Woo muttering that the two-legged ones still have a chance. If you fight, the four-legged monster is fast. Sung Woo told his skeleton to throw spears repeatedly. The wolf monster tries to escape from Sung Woo's attacks. Sung Woo told his skeleton to immediately prepare to launch another attack. Then the skeleton troops jumped towards the wolf monster and the troops managed to land an attack on the wolf monster. It turned out that the skeleton troops were carrying bottles filled with slime and threw them towards the monster's mouth. Sung Woo grinned and said, "How did you guys learn not to eat everything that other people give you?" As usual, Righty gave the final attack to the wolf monster which had been poisoned. With Righty's success in eliminating the wolf monster, a message from the system appears and Sung Woo gets 240 gold from fighting the dire wolf. After seeing one of its comrades killed, the other wolf monsters became frightened by taking advantage of the moment. Sung Woo orders his skeleton army to immediately finish off everything that is left. The system message appeared again and said that Sung Woo got 200 gold. After killing the dire wolf, another message also appeared that Sung Woo had now leveled up to level 7. The gold harvest occurs after Sung Woo defeats the entire pack of wolf monsters. Jisoo also said to Sung Woo she felt that she was a burden on the team. Sung Woo calms Jisoo because he has helped a lot. Sung Woo muttered, "Jisoo's job relies on surprise attacks, but if she focuses on her physical abilities, she can become a specialist in surprise attacks." Sung Woo turned to Manhwa and he muttered, "Is Manhwa still in the process of growing up?" In this panel, we can see that Manhwa explains to his parents that Righty is the leader of the skeleton army. Manhwa's mother was very surprised because Righty's body was very small but very strong. Sung Woo tries to awaken the wolf monster and a message from the system appears. Sung Woo is still unable to awaken a monster with a large body. Sung Woo also invites them to hurry and leave because they are afraid that there are many other groups of wolves roaming around. It was already daytime. The scene moved to show the mouth of a monster. It turns out the monster was chasing the helicopter. The monster is the dragon we saw in the previous panel. It turned out that the helicopter belonged to the military and one of the people shouted at the pilot to increase speed because he was afraid the monster could catch them. He also shouted at Sergeant Kim and abused him. He said that Sergeant Kim should immediately report to us if there was a monster like a dragon in the air. He was very annoyed because they should be leading the citizens instead of fighting monsters like this. Then a system window appears saying that the field has appeared. The monster immediately attacked the military helicopter. As a result, they were unable to fight the monster, and this resulted in their defeat. The helicopter fell and exploded on the ground and the field boss roared loudly. After attacking the helicopter, it indicates that the area is his territory. The scene shows that the boss monster is roaring and smoke from the helicopter is billowing into the air. Sung Woo's, Jisoo, and Manhwa can only be silent seeing the horror of the field boss. Sung Woo said it was a military helicopter. Manhwa also commented that he did not deny that the field boss would do something as scary as that. After that, the field boss fell asleep again and was guarded by the two dragons next to him. Then Manhwa's father said to Sung Woo that he had seen a film that the boss had slept in the building they were in now. The caption also says, "What should we do now?" Meanwhile, the safe zone is right in front of us. Sung Woo also said that we cannot break through them. All we can do is wait for them to leave. Sung Woo invites them all to rest. Evening arrived. It can be seen that Manhwa's father and Manhwa's mother are sleeping tiredly. Meanwhile, the main actors, Jisoo and Manhwa and Righty, are on guard. Sung Woo was surprised by something. Then a number of systems emerged that gave second chances to those who did not choose a job. At the first opportunity, Manhwa shouted at his father and mother to immediately choose a job and told them to choose a job with lots of stars. Manhwa's father said, "I have 20 years of experience in holding cards, so I can't possibly be the same as you." Sung Woo was surprised by the system message that appeared again saying to select a link card. 15 seconds remaining, Sung Woo muttered, "Will it be combined with the current job?" Sung Woo is shocked to see the card disappearing in front of him. Sung Woo muttered again, "It looks like someone took the card. Maybe not everyone, but this card will definitely be shared with many people." In the end, it's just a competition. Sung Woo said, "Stars, I have to choose the answer with lots of stars." Sung Woo continued muttering, "Let's calm down first. If it's circumference, then having a card with lots of stars isn't always a good choice." Sung Woo is still muttering. so the card should be the one that has the best effect when combined with the recruit job. Finally, Sung-woo chooses one of the cards. A system message appeared. You have selected the Black Magician card. This card will be combined with your original card, namely Necromancer, and will provide new skills. Sung-woo said, the death aura buff for the Andit and debuff troops for my enemy is very good. Sung-woo said, oh my gosh, I'm done. Now he says he saw a card with 4 stars, but someone else had already chosen it. So he only gets a card with 1 star with a job prize. Then Righty tried to cheer him up and Hanho said again, the skill I got can give me protection for 10 seconds after killing an enemy. But I'm a long-range attacker. Sung-woo said, isn't that a good thing? Hanho tearfully looked at his parents and said that it was over. Hanho's father told him that he had the job of a pioneer so Hanho's father could create a safe zone. After hearing that, Sung-woo felt very happy and said, it seems like we don't need to go to Suwon. The scene changes to show a quiet night. Hanho's father said, I should have learned this skill earlier. He jokingly said that they could both die from his attack. Then with a sullen face, Hanho asked his mother about what job he chose. His mother said that he chose to be a chef. Hanho felt disappointed with the two of them. He said you two should choose jobs that can be used for fighting. Hanho's parents also had drama and said that Hanho had the heart to tell his parents to fight at such an old age. His mother added, oh my gosh, I even fed this child for 20 years with an attitude like this. Hanho frantically answered, that's not what I meant, Mom and Dad. Then Sung-woo asked Jisoo, what job did he get? Jisoo answered that I took the Hitman job with 3 stars. The skill is exclusive sense. It is a passive skill that magnifies your senses. In a critical situation, Sung-woo answered, isn't that a perfect skill for you? Jisoo muttered, it really was very strong. He has the skills to use people effectively, and the decisions he makes are always right. No matter what, I can't be like him. I also want to get stronger. If I can't be like that, at least I found my own way to be strong. Both mentally and physically, I have to get stronger. Then Sung-woo called Hanho's father, Uncle, can you explain the skills of the pioneer job? Okay, I'll explain in more detail, said Hanho's father. Then a system window appeared explaining Hanho's father's skills. This skill can create a save area with an area of 200 square meters and a maximum height of 10 meters. Areas can also be protected with shields that can be restored as soon as possible. Apart from that, this skill uses lives with a total of 10 lives per 10 minutes. If the player's life runs out, the player's gold will be consumed at a rate of 100 gold per 10 minutes. Sung-woo says that currently, it is very difficult to create a save area. Even having a large-scale group is considered not necessarily effective. Sung-woo also added, it looks like we will only use this skill if necessary. We should look for a safe area as soon as possible. Hanho's father was surprised by Sung-woo's decision. Hanho panicked and said, so we can't go to the save area at Swanhangsong? Sung-woo casually said, that's no longer necessary. Sung-woo adds that they will definitely be enslaved and that will be very tiring because they will also need gold to defend the save area. Finally, what you have been waiting for has arrived. Field also moved after sleeping for quite a long time. Then the herd of dragons were seen flying away from the building they were previously occupying. Sung-woo told Hanho to immediately look towards the community. Is the location of the shop visible or not? Hanho quickly checked the community menu. Sung-woo muttered he needed to level up again and use up his gold. Wisely, it can be seen that Sung-woo's gold has reached 24,560 gold. Holding his head said that he couldn't see any shops near this area. Then there was a fairly loud vibration. It turned out that the vibration was caused by a motorbike gang of high school students who previously wanted to attack Sung-woo. They left the place as soon as possible because of the dragon. Hanho said, aren't they the ones from yesterday? Sung-woo grinned in response to Hanho's words. They robbed other people's gold, so they should know where the nearest shop is in this area. Then the scene shows an empty building. The white-haired man was very upset because they were stuck in the butcher shop because of the dragon. So they can't go anywhere. Another friend said it doesn't matter because now we can eat meat. It turns out this man's name is Taezeng. His friend told Taezeng to spin the silver roulette ticket. He said that hopefully this time he would get something useful. He opened the door to one of the rooms. There he shouted, we are back. Surely you thought we were dead. No. Then he was stunned and said, why is it so quiet like this? One of his friends tremblingly called out to him. Taezeng quickly told his friend to be quiet. They walked slowly towards a room. He rushed to open the door. Taesang said, have you been staying here for a long time? What kind of atmosphere is this? Where is Yujin? One of them said while shaking. He explained that God had come. He said that we weren't raising enough money. Then before Yujin finished speaking, Taesang suddenly panicked. He ran and asked where Yujin was. Then someone came out and it turned out to be Yujin. Taizeng asked, "Are you okay?" Yujin was very surprised. Taizeng looked at Yujin. It turns out Yujin has been turned into a vampire, and he told his friends not to open their mouths because he can smell human flesh and make him feel hungry. Then someone said that dirty girl. He also thought of someone. He remembered a past incident. It turns out Taizeng once killed someone. He also met someone in one of the rooms in the building. It turns out that they had been working for the person in front of the Taizeng. The person tells Taizeng to need to maintain their sanity. Those who have become vampires are required to drink a certain amount of blood. Taizeng tremblingly said a certain number. How many people had they killed? The vampire said, "So you argue?" Then the scene shows that it turns out they have an army of vampires at work. Put up with a growl, he said, "Oak, I'll follow your wishes, but leave us be and let us find out why for ourselves." Then the vampire got closer to Taizeng and said, "You're wrong, you bastard. If you don't listen to us, we will slaughter you all." Then Taizeng's legs were seen shaking after hearing the threat just now. The vampire gave orders, "I want you to bring me 10,000 gold in 2 days. If not, your neck will be the next victim." Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the room, and the vampire realized that someone had entered his territory. It turns out that person is Sung Woo. Sung Woo said, "You guys treat customers very rudely." The vampire replied, "Customer, okay, customer. What do you need?" Sung Woo said, "We want everything," and the vampire said, "What do you mean?" Then Sung Woo pointed his gun and said, "Give us everything you have." The vampire laughed at Sung Woo's words. "You apparently aren't the customers we thought you were. You're looking for death here." Taizeng muttered, "Damn, this place will soon be flooded with blood." Sung Woo was surprised to see the teeth. Sung Woo said, "Are you the boss of Hanwha's apartment? Could it be that those people weren't finished yet?" Sung Woo spoke. The vampire immediately attacked Sung Woo. The vampire shouted, "Are you the one who killed them all blindly?" The vampire attacked Sung Woo. The vampire's hand was held by one of the skeleton troops. Sung Woo said, "Did you guys do that?" Sung Woo asked once again, "Did you guys do this?" The vampire was shocked and said, "Damn this bastard." Before Taizeng's eyes, it was seen that a massacre was taking place by Sung Woo. While attacking the vampire, Sung Woo said, "Arise, skeleton." It could be seen that the vampire was shaking and injured quite badly. Then Sung Woo attacked the vampire again. It turned out that the vampire was no longer able to move because his movements had been locked by the skeleton troops. Sung Woo then asked the vampire, "Are you holding a vampire staff?" The vampire actually laughed. The vampire launched another attack at Sung Woo. The vampire managed to break Sung Woo's sword and immediately lunged at Sung Woo blindly. Here Sung Woo is still very calm when receiving attacks from vampires. Just before the vampire managed to injure Sung Woo, he was first hit by a series of deck attacks. It turns out that the one who threw the danger was Hanho. Then Jisoo also took part and attacked the vampire by slashing one of the vampire's hands. The vampire was very surprised and just realized that one of his hands had been cut off. A message appeared from the system saying that due to the effect of an item called Ignition Greenstone, the vampire's regeneration was limited by the effects of burns. Then Jisoo lunged at the vampire again with a sword covered in flames. The vampire immediately reflexively avoided Jisoo's attack, but Jisoo was no less fast and managed to approach the vampire with her stance. Jisoo again succeeded in slashing the vampire's other hand. It turns out that vampire regeneration can be said to be fast because the hand that Jisoo had cut off has returned to normal. They also traded attacks with each other. The vampire also held Jisoo's sword. He wanted to do the same thing he did to Sung Woo, namely destroy his opponent's sword. Swiftly, Jisoo, who had seen Sung Woo's mistake, immediately launched her attacks again and again. A message appeared from the system saying the exclusive sense skill was active, so Jisoo got this skill after choosing her second job. He can make quick decisions in very critical situations. The vampire also received an attack from his back. Then a system screen appears that says the Aura of the Dead skill is active. This skill was obtained by Sung Woo from his second job, which can give buff effects to opponents and give buff effects to skeleton troops. Sung Woo muttered, "Usually I have a very hard time fighting vampire monsters because I have this skill. This means that opponents can be overcome easily." The system appeared again and said that the vampire was hit by the buff skill from Sung Woo and hit by 10 combos from the skeleton troops. The vampire fell and sat limp after receiving an attack from Sung Woo. He shouted at Sung Woo, "Please stop, what you really want." Sung Woo answered him, "It was only after I did this that you finally asked to negotiate." The vampire muttered, "This guy is controlling the skeletons. I was able to defeat him with a surprise attack because he didn't have good skills. I will continue to talk to him and slowly approach him. After that, I will immediately finish him off instantly." However, without realizing it, the vampire had been hit by a heavy attack from the skeleton army. He was again bombarded with various attacks from the skeleton troops. Sung Woo also said, "You don't need to get closer to your current position. You can talk to me if that's not enough. You can talk to me because I still have enough spears left. Sung-woo muttered, "This is very scary." "So who exactly are these people?" Suddenly the vampire spoke. "Don't think you were better than us, Vampire Nation, because you have succeeded in capturing me. When the director's mission is accomplished, bugs like you will not be finished." The vampire spoke. Sung-woo immediately asked Jisoo to end it quickly. Jisoo slashed the head of a vampire and managed to get 322 gold after killing a player. Hysterically, Taesing screamed at what had just happened. Then Taesing trembled and said, "Please forgive us. We have nothing to do with them." Sung-woo also called Taesing in a firm tone. Haltingly, he answered yes. Sung-woo continued, "Didn't I tell you at the beginning? Give me everything you have." The day has changed. The high school students transferred the amount of gold they had to Sung-woo's team, and it can be seen that one of the high school students was very shy to shake hands with Jisoo. Hanho also said, "I think you have a lot of this gold. Less than I imagined." Jisoo then turned her gaze to the front of the vampire and she said, "Their boss, right?" Sung-woo said to Jisoo, "I don't know who they are, but what I can confirm is that they are currently preparing something and are increasing their strength." Sung-woo also added that they work systematically. All we can see from them is forcing them to collect gold taxes. Jisoo also said that, "I think you have adapted to this world quickly. If I thought someone would do something this cruel on purpose, they would adapt too." Jisoo thought about the vampires. Aren't they doing this all because of the current state of the world? Sung-woo muttered, "It continued to increase the number of troops and the spread of monster casualties. This vampire is like a virus. Will we be able to beat them in the future? Right now, we have to work hard or work together to defeat a vampire. What happens if they attack us in groups? This incident would definitely reach their ears. Sooner or later, we will definitely fight them. We must immediately get stronger." Sung-woo stopped muttering, and he asked, "Isn't there a shop near here?" It turns out that when Sung-woo asked Taesing, Taesing was giving directions to his friends not to act arrogantly. Frightened, Taesing escorted Sung-woo and his friends. Then a message from the system suddenly appeared and said, "What happens to someone who doesn't have a card at all?" Hanho shouted at Sung-woo, "What the hell? Can you see it too?" While Sung-woo was muttering, this red system message made me think very badly. Then one of the high school students shouted. Taesing immediately approached his friend. He said, "What are you doing? Would you still not choose the card on the second chance?" His friend was adamant and said that he did not trust the system. His friend scolded Taesing again, "You never know what will happen. It's not just me who doesn't have a joke card, but they too." Then the message came back and said, "The answer is that you will become a monster because you have missed the opportunity to become a player." Suddenly, Taesing's friends who didn't choose a card had transformed into monsters. Sung-woo, while looking at the transformation, he muttered this was the intimidating aura of a monster. "If we don't attack when they transform, we won't win against them. Luckily, it takes time for them to transform." Sung-woo shouted uncontrollably. He ordered to attack immediately. Jisoo was surprised by Sung-woo's directions. Then the skeletons immediately charged at the monsters who were transforming. Sung-woo muttered, "I'm sorry. I can't do anything in a situation like this." It is shown that Sung-woo's skeleton troops are still attacking the monsters that are transforming. Sung-woo muttered, "What else are you using? Simple attacks against skeletons that have very sturdy bodies?" Then the skeletons together carried out the final attack. A system message appeared that rained on Sung-woo. "You have earned 3,000 gold. After defeating the werewolf, and you have successfully leveled up to level 8. Sung-woo was still very surprised by the message from the system just now. Sung-woo muttered that just one head of them was worth 3,000 gold. "I beat Darwolf only getting 240 gold. But this time is different. Just defeating one werewolf gets 3,000. Luckily, I finished them off while they were transforming. Otherwise, it will be a big problem." When fighting high-rank monsters after his level increase, Sung-woo chose a random level-up card and gained an agility increase of 3. Sung-woo was grateful for what he got from the random chart. Jisoo also said that, but Hanho hugged him because he was not ready to fight high-ranked monsters in the future. He felt that the difficulty level had suddenly increased drastically. Sung-woo also said, "In the future, there will definitely be a way to fight them." Sung-woo muttered, "Until now, I haven't awakened any updates from human corpses. If I do that, it will worsen my image in front of the survivors. But now the situation is different. People who don't have jobs have been turned into monsters by the system. If we were to face something like this in the future, I would have no doubts." Then Sung-woo awakened the werewolf monster in front of them. Sung-woo felt happy because he succeeded in raising a monster with a high rank level. And he is also increasingly optimistic about fighting the vampire army in the future. Taesing was surprised by what Sung-woo did. While Taesing was stunned, Sung-woo reminded him about the shop. What he said before was that Taesing stammered and said that the location of the shop was in a used car sales shop. But unfortunately, that place has been controlled by someone who is very loyal to the vampire army. They took the players' gold and sacrificed the players to vampires. Then Sung Woo firmly ordered Taezeng to take him there. It can be seen that Sung Woo's team is heading to the location Taezeng said. Sung Woo felt something was strange because the place was not guarded at all. Suddenly, there was an explosion. Sung Woo instructs everyone to hide. He saw that there was a vampire fighting a bear monster. The bear seemed to dominate the battle. Sung Woo muttered, "I'm very sure that the bear was a human who was stolen by them because he didn't choose to answer until the second chance." He eventually became a bear monster and took revenge on the vampire army. This is beyond reason. They would never have thought that the victim they considered inferior would become the perpetrator who would kill them. The vampire can be seen carrying out continuous attacks on the bear monster. However, the bear still persisted in maintaining its consciousness. It can be seen that the bear managed to land a fatal attack on the vampire. Sung Woo muttered, "Now is a good opportunity." It can be seen that the bear monster and the vampire are quite badly injured. Sung Woo continued muttering, "We can defeat them and reflect on the wounds they received from the fight just now." They both shouted and continued on their way. The fight suddenly happened unexpectedly. There is Sung Woo's skeleton army right next to the vampire. Then the scene shows Hanho's parents being closely guarded by skeleton troops. Hanho's parents felt that Sung Woo and the team had been silent in the building for a very long time. Maybe the building in question is a shop inside a used car sales shop. Hanho's father was annoyed because Sung Woo's team had killed a human, but Mrs. Hanho said they were still teenagers. Maybe in the future they will slowly understand. Then we saw the monsters being attacked by skeleton troops, and the vampire was attacked by a bear monster. He bounced and hit the car behind him. Sung Woo looked carefully at the bear monster's hands, which turned out to be chained. Sung Woo was surprised to see that. He felt that they were victims who were taken by force. Then it was seen that the vampire had been defeated by a bear monster. Suddenly, Righty lunges at the vampire from above and startles the bear monster. The bear is seen catching one of the skeleton troops. Sung Woo furrowed his brows and said, "Apparently, I made a little mistake." However, an unexpected incident occurred. The skeleton instead turned to attack the bear monster. Sung Woo just realized that the natural characteristic of wolf monsters is that they know how to hunt well. Then the wolf skeleton managed to defeat the bear monster. A message from the system appeared and said Sung Woo got 3,500 gold from killing the werewolf monster. Then we saw that the bear monster's hand was lying helpless. Sung Woo turned to his skeleton troops. He said, "It looks like I'm going to have to delete one of you." Sung Woo awakens the bear monster, and this is the largest skeleton army that Sung Woo has ever had so far. Sung Woo was still amazed because he managed to resurrect the monster. He also asked, "Didn't the system say that my limit was only on medium-sized monsters?" Suddenly, Hanho saw a bus parked there. Hanho said that this was their campus bus. Jisoo was surprised to see the bus. Sung Woo said that they must have been made slaves by the vampires. Sung Woo also remembered meeting his friend who was driving the bus. Before they separated, Sung Woo asked Taezeng to continue leading the way towards the shop they were looking for. Righty haltingly agreed to Sung Woo's request, but suddenly Yujin arrived. He said, "This body is called Yujin. Don't worry about it because I love children," said the vampire. Then the vampire walked towards Sung Woo and said that Sung Woo had made a mistake by killing his colleagues. He was possessed. This was the first thing I saw. From any perspective, this is very dangerous. The vampire grinned and said he was very grateful to the person called Professor Ock. So the vampires really glorify the professor. The vampire said to Sung Woo, "It seems like people like you will understand." "Oak, I'll do what I have to do." The vampire also said, "Prepare to meet your death." Sung Woo was immediately surprised by the change in atmosphere that occurred. It turns out that the vampire releases a skill that can have a negative effect on the opponent, which we usually call buff. To be free from this curse, Sung Woo must have a power design. The monster climbed on Sung Woo and said, "You are finished now," and he continued to berate Sung Woo. While he was cursing, suddenly there was an attack from Sung Woo aimed at him. He was hit by a heavy attack from Sung Woo and immediately fell to the ground. Sung Woo also looked very angry as a result of being verbally abused by the vampire. Using Hanho with wide eyes thinking about whether he is still in the meeting. It is said that a human Sung Woo also muttered that this red mark was a curse, but I couldn't feel anything from this mark. Then Hanho pranked Sung Woo and used his price mode. He said that he saw a bad aura in Sung Woo. Sung Woo felt a little annoyed with Hanho's behavior. Hanho immediately checked the condition of Sung Woo's hands. Sung Woo also said to Hanho, "If you become a real pain, one country will." Then Hanho interrupted Sung Woo's words and said he could feel disrespect from Sung Woo. After further review, a system message appeared, "You have been cursed. Your location will be known every 12 hours. You cannot cancel this curse because your divine power is relatively low." After Hanho reviewed it, another message from the system appeared. It turns out that this incident triggered a special quest. The quest consists of defeating the person who is targeting you. That person is preparing for an operation that will endanger your life. If you succeed in defeating him, you will get 30,000 gold and seat ticket items. Sun Wu muttered, I don't have much time, so I have to quickly find them and defeat them before they get stronger. Then Sun Wu approached Taizeng and said that he had repeatedly asked him to take him to the shop. Sun Wu also asked Taizeng where the vampires gathered. Finally, Sun Wu had found the shop he was aiming for. The shop has leveled, and the shop can be accessed from the computer screen. Jisoo and Hanho are discussing, so this isn't a roulette system, said Jisoo. Hanho also felt confused about the shop mechanism. This time in the D-level shop, there are 4 levels, and the most expensive is the platinum level. Previously, level E only reached a maximum of gold. Maximum level up to platinum, so it is possible that in the future the level of shops that Sun Wu will encounter will continue to increase. Sun Wu also told them that he wanted to take first place. Then the system appeared saying that Sun Wu had 1 ticket level with unlimited grade. Sun Wu remembered that he got the prize when he achieved the first 100 skills in the world, and this achievement was limited to the first 100 people. Sun Wu was surprised to see the platinum grade, which was very expensive, even 10 times the price of great gold. Sun Wu also chose the menu at the shop. It turns out that this shop can also store valuable items as support to get the best prize. After that, Sun Wu was seen holding gold. Sun Wu also put the orb in the shop where it would be used as a medium of exchange. Jisoo and Hanho were surprised by what Sun Wu did. Somehow, again and again, Sun Wu gets the main and best prize. At the shop, you get a coupon to maximize your skills. This item has a legend grade, so we can judge this item to be a very overpowered item. There is a note from the system. Sun Wu will be given skills from the system, and these skills will be immediately mastered by Sun Wu without the need to practice. Sun Wu also got a new skill called Faith and Sanctuary. This skill functions to save skeleton troops, so Sun Wu could put his skeleton army there, and you could say this is similar to an inventory system for items. Sun Wu also saw Jisoo and Hanho. He said that he was very lucky today. Jisoo and Hanho still couldn't believe what Sun Wu had gotten. Jisoo and Hanho told Sun Wu to get out of the way because they also wanted to do gacha. Sun Wu activated his latest and the skeletons slowly disappeared. Sun Wu said that the skill is very important because it can hide the opponent's strength. Apart from that, in attacks, ambushes are also increasingly effective. Then Sun Wu turned cheerfully towards Jisoo and Hanho. He said, so did you guys get anything good? It turns out that Jisoo and Hanko got trash items from the shop, especially Hanho, who always gets the ugliest items. Sun Wu said uncomfortably, so are we going to leave here? Then Hanho tearfully said that he would do it first at the next shop. Then the scene shows a building and there is a vampire intimidating his victims. There is someone's foot on this panel, he mutters, why did I have to do something wrong this time? It turned out that the person was Sun Wu's friend's bus driver. The screams of the vampires were heard again. Those of you who are still alive quickly get into the car. The bus driver muttered that I made decisions very easily and trivially. Should I have followed him from the start? So the person in question is Sun Wu. He continued muttering. When we arrived at the military bus, it turned out that the bus had been completely destroyed. He was able to get there after going through various obstacles such as attacks by dragons and other monsters. Then suddenly, there was an explosion. Turns out the bus driver's name was Kyungso. The yellow-haired guy turned it on because they just followed him. And apparently there was nothing here. He felt that he had been deceived by Kyungso. They shouted at Kyungso and said, so what should we do now? Kyungso trembled and muttered, I'm not the only one driving the bus, but why is all the blame being placed on me? Then one of them called Kyungso and told him to immediately check his cell phone. He also read the message and it contained the save area in Swan Hongsong. They also forced Kyungso to immediately determine his next destination. He also made up his mind to go to the save area. They continued their journey. It turns out that the scene above is a flashback from Kyungso. He felt that the decision was a very bad decision. He was surrounded by an army of vampires, and around Kyungso his friends were dead. From behind, someone kicked him to move quickly. The vampire told Kyungso to work harder and make them food. One of the vampires said that he was very slow and should they immediately replace him with a new slave. Then with his scary fangs, the vampire said that he could kill him immediately and could raise his level. Jung-suk imagined what they were doing to his friends. The vampire turned out to be holding many people hostage. They told the victims to speed up their journey. Suddenly, the person in front of Kyungso stopped, so he bumped into the person's back. The person was shocked to see the skeleton blocking the road in front of him. If we look closely, the skeleton turns out to be Righty. Righty also pointed his sword at them. The vampire's friend asked his friend, did you see that? The other vampire said, isn't that a skeleton, not a goblin? And Kyungso muttered, I'm very sure I've seen that skeleton." The two vampires grinned. Was this a joke? "I think this is a new type of monster." The vampire immediately attacked Righty. He was very confident in attacking the skeleton, and Righty just stayed there very calmly. Suddenly, the vampire's leg was hit by an attack. The attack turned out to be spears from the skeletons, which rained down on the vampire. The vampire lay limp on the floor and couldn't move due to the spear attacks from the skeletons. After that, all of Sung-woo's skeleton troops appeared and surrounded the vampire. He was swiftly executed by the audience. Kyung-soo looked very happy after realizing that Sung-woo had come to save them. Then Sung-woo approached Kyung-soo and said, "I hope you are fine, but it looks like you are having difficulties now." Kyung-soo mumbled, "The last time we met he wasn't as strong as he is now. Even though we are from the same university. Was there always a big distance between me and him?" Suddenly the vampire was able to wake up again and laugh, that he will be serious from now on. But before the vampire had finished speaking, one of the arms of the skeleton army was ready to attack him from behind. As soon as possible, the skeletons finished off the vampire, and everyone there was shocked to see Sung-woo's tragedy. Sung-woo says they have faces like humans, but they are monsters, so I will only leave a few of you alive. Then the scene moved. You can see the atmosphere outside the warehouse. Kim-soo was very surprised by Sung-woo's strength. At this time, he also realized that it wasn't just Sung-woo who was getting stronger, but Jisoo and Han-ho too. Kyung-soo feels very lucky to be Han-ho because he can be around them. One of the vampires begged for forgiveness, and he promised to tell Sung-woo everything. Sung-woo also asked how many people were in the building and how many vampire participants were their level. The vampires said that the leader was now at level 5 and there were 12 people in the building. The highest level of the player is level 4. Sung-woo firmly said, "Answer honestly." Then he muttered, "I also have no desire to forgive you." Then the vampire said, "Are you very curious about the situation in that building? Just like I said just now, your life is just not finished yet." The vampire spoke. He was hit from behind. It turns out that the person who attacked the vampire was Kyung-soo. He said, "I know about the situation in there. I couldn't resist seeing this vampire still alive. He has killed my friends." He said while crying, "My friends are afraid, but they don't deserve to die." He also recalled memories with his friends. Sung-woo immediately approached Kyung-soo and calmed him down while turning his gaze towards the army of vampires. Sung-woo says all the vampires deserve this. Sung-woo also invited everyone there to immediately finish off the vampires in the building. In this panel, you can see that inside the building, there is a person who is busy dealing with the corpses of the players. It turns out that this person is being watched by the vampire leaders. The vampire also complained about the decision taken by the CEO. The vampire said to his friend that the CEO called us to catch humans continuously. But how long will this continue? Then the vampire leader said, "Humans are just a supply for us. It's easier to catch humans than monsters. What we are doing now is called evolutionary business." He added that the CEO may have other goals in all this. The Croco vampire is seen discussing. He wants to immediately be promoted to become a permanent employee. His friend told him to work harder so that this could happen. He explains that the CDO will turn you into a permanent employee if you stand out. So here you can see the shadow of the vampire CEO. The vampire was shocked by the words of someone who interrupted him. The person said that they were not permanent workers, but rather that they were the same as monsters. It turns out that person is Sung-woo. Sung-woo comments on business evolution and says it's really ridiculous. The vampire leaders immediately came down. They approached Sung-woo and asked, "Who exactly is this Sung-woo?" The people who were in prison were very enthusiastic to see Sung-woo's arrival and said that Sung-woo was the one who saved them. The vampire shouted for them to keep their mouths shut tight. The vampire says, "Who allowed you guys to talk?" Then Sung-woo with a condescending look said, "So your boss didn't tell you who I am?" The vampire woke up. "So you were the one who killed our friends?" Previously, Sung-woo laughed at the vampire's words. The vampire said, "Who allowed you to act like this?" In front of us, Sung-woo also released his skills to attack the vampires. The vampires were shocked to see a collection of black smoke near them. The system appeared, giving a warning. The vampire was still figuring out what happened. Then from the smoke appeared an army of skeletons. Feel Blade is the name of the skill used by Sung-woo. This skill comes from Sung-woo's second job. The system appeared and said that they were affected by Sung-woo's skill. All stars dropped drastically. They also looked very afraid to see the skeleton troops. They struggled to block the attacks of the skeleton troops. It looked like they were very panicked. As a result of the attack from the skeletons, a system message appeared saying that the dead had become your followers. They rose again and again. The vampire was very surprised to see what happened just now. He also blindly attacked the skeletons. He realized that the one controlling the skeleton was Sung-woo, so he decided to immediately finish off Sung-woo. Suddenly, he was hit by a bottle containing slime. It turned out that the one who threw it was Hanho. The vampire screamed in pain. At the same time, something happened. Jisoo said that the prisoners had been released. The building was forcibly hit from the outside by a bus. As usual, the one driving the bus was Kyungso. He ordered the injured people onto the bus. The vampire shouted at the people who were running away, but he didn't realize that there was a skeleton attack. Next, he was heavily hit by an attack from the skeleton. It turns out that the one who attacked was Righty with an active skill, namely Madness of the Wild, which makes goblin-type monsters experience a buff. He couldn't avoid Righty's attack because he had been hit by another skill from Sung-woo. This is an explanation of the effects of the items used by Sung-woo, and these items were obtained by Sung-woo from the battle. Sung-woo's previous fight. Then swiftly, Righty launched a final attack on the vampire, and the vampire was split into two. Hanho and Jisoo complained about this abandoned factory. Sung-woo said that because they used a place like this, they were doomed to fail. The vampire muttered, "Apparently this bastard is quite strong. My head is very dizzy." Suddenly the vampire's subordinate approached his superior. He said that he was willing to sacrifice himself as food for the vampires, so that his boss could defeat Sung-woo's team. Hanho was very surprised to see the condition of the vampire. Then the vampire said that he could feel his power increasing. He shouted at Sung-woo, "You guys die right now." A system appeared warning that a high-level vampire had appeared. This is the face of the high-ring vampire. Sung-woo grinned and told his friends that the vampire had given up being human. He prefers to be a monster. The vampire attacked Sung-woo, and you could see that the vampire's body shape was really like a monster. The vampire's attack seemed to be blocked by one of the skeleton troops. It turned out that it wasn't just one skeleton that was holding back the vampire's movements, but also all the skeleton troops were assigned to surround the vampire. The vampires were seen attacking the skeletons blindly. He continued to attack and attack as if the vampire's power was limitless. The vampire also managed to throw a crushing fist at the skeleton. But with all their might, the skeleton army immediately backed up and surrounded the vampire again and again. At one point, the skeleton troops managed to land an attack on the vampire because he was outnumbered. Jisoo quickly immediately helped the skeleton troops. Jisoo also used the skeleton as a stepping stone and immediately jumped towards the vampire. He managed to land an attack on the vampire. The vampire was very irritated after being hit so many times. It can be seen that Righty is preparing an attack on the vampire. Righty swiftly slashed the vampire's right stomach. The vampire could only stand still after being hit by a crushing attack from Righty. Before the vampire had moved, the skeleton troops attacked the vampire again repeatedly. Sung-woo revives the fallen skeleton troops. Hanho praised Jisoo's greatness. Meanwhile, Sung-woo told Hanho to remain careful. Sung-woo muttered, "The vampire was overwhelmed because there was constant bleeding and explosions. I'm sure he won't last long in that condition. But I think the monster's body can be destroyed. It will be dangerous if this continues, because the barrier created by Ulk will be broken." So the barrier that Sung-woo means is an army of skeleton orbs that surround the vampire so that the vampire can't go anywhere. Sung-woo continued muttering, "I still can't believe that this vampire is still just a subordinate of the vampire boss." Sung-woo continued to think, if only the subordinates were this strong, what about the strength of their boss? Then a system message appeared that those who had died had submitted under your power. Seeing the system message, Sung-woo smiled and said he felt guilty for using up so much power just to defeat one vampire monster. Then Sung-woo said that from now on he had to make good use of the skeleton werewolf monster. A system appeared that said that Sung-woo got a synergy list because there were 3 or more dog-type monsters in Sung-woo's army. So this triggers the emergence of synergistic effects from the synergy list. This increases attack speed and defense. Well, it turns out that what Sung-woo resurrected was a werewolf monster. Nearly that person was suddenly surprised by the change in the strength of the skeleton army. Sung-woo also ordered the skeleton werewolf troops to immediately attack the vampires. It can be seen that the vampire was helplessly attacked by 3 werewolf skeletons. He is constantly attacked by skeleton troops. The vampire could only roar in pain. Sung-woo gave the final attack on the vampire, then a system appeared which said that Sung-woo had succeeded in defeating the special player and got 10,000 gold. Sung-woo pulled out his spear and was shocked after seeing the word player on the system. Sung-woo also thought about turning the vampire into his subordinate because the vampire's form had changed into a monster. So Sung-woo thought he could revive him. Sung-woo muttered, because vampires have a weakness in their heads, so we cut off their heads and they will die instantly. But this vampire in front of me is a little different. After that, Sung-woo tried to resurrect the vampire and apparently succeeded. Sung-woo was once again surprised by the system because the system said that Sung-woo could see the memories of the vampire he had defeated. Then we are invited to see the vampire's memories. Sung-woo muttered, "What is this?" I've never seen this before. Is this one of the powers of a necromancer? It turns out that Sung Woo can see the surrounding conditions through the vampire's body. Then someone was seen carrying a glass containing red liquid. He told people to think about the goal of the game. It seemed that they were just silent. No one dared to answer. The vampire added, "I'm sure no one will be able to answer that question." Then he said that although we don't know the purpose of this game, I know what they have to do. He said that they had to evolve, and he also asked branch managers for their opinions. This bespectacled vampire is the lord of the vampires, and the people sitting around the lord are the branch managers of each region. So for Manager Kim, we don't know which area he holds. With fear, Manager Kim said that everything the vampire lord said was true. He mentioned the races one by one that exist in this world. He said that the human body is only a limitation that makes them weak and pathetic. Thus, he said to eradicate humans from the face of this earth. He also added that humans will eventually become extinct. If not for this incident, the vampire race would have evolved into different creatures and started a new world era. Sung Woo also looked very surprised by the words of the Lord Vampire. The Lord Vampire continued his words. He has a mission that they must carry out. Then one of the subordinates shouted excitedly after hearing the mission word from Lord Vampire. Sung Woo muttered, "What is their strange spirit? Was it because they had been bitten that they were brainwashed? What a strange loyal instinct. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why this vampire organization was able to grow so much in just a few days." Then the vampire lord raised his glass and said we would celebrate this for our own sake. He said that Hwangsong was the first location they managed to conquer. He also said that the name of this strategy is Great Fish. The vampire told Manager Kim to take care of the food supply and look for ingredients. The vampire who was defeated by Sung Woo was Manager Kim. Sung Woo mutters that human material is easy for war. Their slaughter party makes a very crazy plan. The aim of their plan was to create a shift area and trap people, and the funny thing was that the strategy worked very well and there were no obstacles. Then a message from the system suddenly appeared and said that Sung Woo had received a private mission. This was the second time the message appeared. After successfully killing a high-ranked vampire, the system message stated that Sung Woo was obliged to stop the massacre or use the wealth to take advantage of the massacre. That means it's like Sung Woo just waited, and once the massacre was over, Sung Woo could raise his troops. The system also emphasizes that the choices Sung Woo makes will affect his future. Hanho approached Sung Woo and asked about the vampire's condition. He also shouted for Sung Woo, who remained silent. Then Hanho started to get scared seeing Sung Woo just staying silent. He asked whether Sung Woo ate rotten food to become like this. Hanho will also do anything so that Sung Woo wakes up quickly. Jisoo also told Hanho to wait here for a moment. Jisoo felt scared after seeing Sung Woo's strange behavior. Suddenly, Sung Woo grabbed Hanho's head. He said in a firm tone, "Who do you mean as the one who eats rotten food here?" Hanho was already shaking with fear. Sung Woo repeated Hanho's words, "Earlier you said you would do whatever I want." Hanho didn't refuse, and he said he didn't say that. Then Sung Woo said that Hanho had to gas with Sung Woo. You can see the hand of a vampire on this panel. He said that one of the branch managers had died. It turns out that the one who said that was the vampire lord. The woman behind him couldn't believe what he had just said. He revealed that the vampire lord had not given him power by holding his head. The vampire lord said that man was beyond my expectations. He is stronger than I thought. The vampire muttered, "I don't know how he killed the branch manager with such a weak skeleton. But this really bothers me." The woman seemed to be able to guess the thoughts of the vampire lord. He said, "Wouldn't this disturb your mind?" Then the vampire lord called the woman. She named the mistress that the vampire lord grinned in annoyance. He asked the lady, "Do you want to interfere in my business?" It turns out this lady is a vampire too. Haltingly, he said, "Excuse the Gular design." The vampire said, "No, madam, you are not wrong. Indeed, this made me not focus on our initial goal." The vampire lord also adds he can still track the MC from the vampire lord's curse mark. He was really looking forward to Sung Woo's presence at the party. He wants to see what kind of man Sung Woo is. Then the scene changes again to show the condition of the warehouse. It turns out that the survivors are helping the injured and collecting weapons. Hanho also complained because the cleaning was never ending. Hanho called Sung Woo. He said, "Is it really okay for us to do this?" Sung Woo was confused by Hanho's question. Jisoo interrupted and said to Sung Woo, "So if what you say is true, then it means that there will be a massacre in Hwangsongkan." Sung Woo says that right now they can't do anything about it. So he suggested that they do what can be done now here. A little explanation. So if we remember from the previous part, Hwangjeon has a chef area, so Jisoo's intention is that the chef area there is only used as a cover for the vampires to attract more humans to that area. Sung Woo and Jisoo found bottles of liquid in the branch manager's cabinet. Sung Woo felt happy after seeing the potion. Jisoo said that vampires hunt humans, so maybe they get useful items from the humans they kill here. Hanho shouted because he found something. He said that his worry was because there was no electricity, but it turned out that this object could be the answer to that problem. Then the system appears explaining the information about the item. The item is called a charger, which can provide electricity and charge the battery. Sungwoo put his cell phone into the device, and it was seen that the device had successfully charged Sungwoo's cell phone. It can also be seen that the time required is only 10 minutes. Jisoo suddenly called Sungwoo and told Sungwoo to look at this one object. This potion is a middle-class potion. This potion can cure infections and soothe wounds. Seeing this item, Sungwoo smiled and said this item was very useful. It didn't feel like it was even late afternoon. Taezeng and his friends thanked Sungwoo and bowed their heads. Taezeng said that he was very happy with Sungwoo's treatment of them. Apart from that, Sungwoo also gave them potions. He said that while glancing at Yujin, the potion given by Sungwoo turned out to be effective in healing Yujin. Sungwoo emphasized that if Yujin was possessed by a vampire again, he would not hesitate to finish her off, so he told Taezeng to take good care of it. Taezeng quickly agreed to Sungwoo's words. Sungwoo muttered in his heart, "This boy seemed to be trying to stop me when I was about to finish off the vampire. He looks like a hero, but he's not at all." Sungwoo emphasized to them, what Sungwoo did was not free, so they are obliged to do something later. They answered in unison, "We will do anything." Sungwoo looked back. He signaled Hanho's father to start. Hanho's father was a pioneer, so he can create a safe zone. Hanho's father excitedly said, "Finally, I can use my hidden power." He shouted, "Make a pioneer camp." A system message appeared there. It is written that this area is now a pioneer camp, so this area is protected by shield for faster shield camp recovery. If done in the game, the manager who owns the camp can limit who can enter the area. This camp is the appearance of the shield that protects the area. Then the people there feel comfortable when they are in the game. Hanho's mother can be seen busy preparing food for the people in the game. They say that it is very comfortable to be in the save area, and finally they can live a decent life like humans in general. A system message appears. Your stamina has increased due to the special menu. Your strength recovers quickly. Your stamina will increase for 20 minutes. After seeing the excited people, Jisoo said, "It seems like it's hard for them to adapt to a situation like this. I really hope we can solve the problem of massacres." Sungwoo also asked Jisoo, "Did you receive a special quest?" Jisoo said that she did not accept quests like that. Sungwoo muttered to himself, "It seems like Jisoo is obsessed with the idea of preventing this disaster. He doesn't get suspicious cases where the consequences are unknown. Even if it wasn't a vampire case, it would still be within my target." Sungwoo approached Jisoo and told her that does he realize that the massacre was not his job? Jisoo answered yes. Stammering, Sungwoo emphasized that even though you tried to stop him, it was because of your sense of justice that you answered by biting his lip. "No, not because of that." He shouted at Sungwoo. He firmly answered that if you avoid it, one day you will be killed by something. Even if it's not a vampire, I try to fight for survival. After Jisoo said this, a system suddenly appeared that shocked them both. The system was titled The Long and Dark Night. The essence of the system's words is to remind all survivors to remain brave in surviving. The system appears again saying that there is a sudden event. This event will last for 7 days. The location is in Suwon-song. Gold acquisition will be doubled. The second student will have the opportunity to get a card every time they successfully defeat a human. Monster buses will still appear in each region, and items with powerful powers will no longer be available in shops. Sungwoo was stunned after seeing the message from the system. He said that what Jisoo said was true. To survive in this crazy game, we have to fight for our lives. The scene moves to show the city in the morning. Hanho shouted, telling Sungwoo that what they were doing now was excessive. Hanho objected because Sungwoo forced him to go to the dangerous dungeon. Hanho continued to express his frustration. He also said to Sungwoo that Sungwoo was trying not to invite Jisoo into this mission. Sungwoo also answered all of Hanho's complaints. Sungwoo said that Jisoo has experienced many things with us. Sungwoo added that if Jisoo was left alone, he would be able to survive. Meanwhile, you will die if you leave it for even half a day. Then Hanho irritably changed the conversation while checking his cell phone. He said to Sungwoo, "Has Sungwoo ever heard of Deva Death?" It turns out that Sungwoo got a reply from a post that Sungwoo had made on the community forum. Sungwoo also saw the message from the community. He checked the replies one by one and he said, "Leave the vampires alone." Acting creates a positive image in front of the public. Sungwoo remembered the names of the people who made the comments one by one. Sungwoo also commented that Yeongdongpo Inspector also commented on my post. Sungwoo remembered the contents of the message in the community made by Yeongdongpo Inspector. It turns out they have set up a building aimed at saving residents and conquering monsters. Apart from that, their goal is independent without having to wait for the government anymore. Sungwoo also said that they did this without playing around. That indicates that they are not an evil organization. Hanbo also said that they were very serious people who made sure everything was down to the details. Sungwoo, casually looking at his cell phone, said that ambitious people were starting to appear. Hanho also asks Sungwoo again, where are we actually going now? Sungwoo says we will raise our level. He also asked Hanho what level Hanho was at now. Hanho answered without feeling guilty. He said that he was now at level 5. Sungwoo resignedly said, forget about half a day. You can only survive for 2 hours. The car Sungwoo was driving stopped. Kyungso says that they have arrived and Sungwoo and his friends can walk from here. They immediately got out of the pickup car. Hanho, with a scared face, asked to make sure that it was true that he belonged here. As if Sungwoo knew that Hanho was scared, he answered very confidently, yes, this is the place. This is a new hunting ground for us, while Sungwoo said that many eyes were seen watching Sungwoo's team. From a distance, you can see on this panel that there is a fireball attack. It turned out that the attack was aimed at Hanho, who was frightened and shocked because there were fireball attacks from the monsters. It turns out that these monsters use magic and can create fireballs, or what we usually hear as fireball. Suddenly, the monster was hit by an attack which gave the monster a skeleton werewolf attack. Sungwoo says that the monster is nothing for now. It can be seen that Jisoo, Raidi, and Kyungso are very enthusiastic about slaughtering the monsters. It seems that now Sungwoo has invited Kyungso to level up with his team. From the monster's eyes, it could be seen that Sungwoo's team was carrying out a massacre. Here Sungwoo says the name of the monster. The monster is called Kobold, which is similar to Goblin. Jisoo also said that they were not that dangerous, but they can use magic. Sungwoo said to his team the purpose of this hunt was to help improve his level. Apart from that, we are looking for new types of monsters that can be used as skeleton troops to increase the variety of monsters from Sungwoo's team. Sungwoo mutters that a skeleton werewolf can fight 3 to 4 vampires even if they use magic. They are not strong enough to be my skeleton army. Jisoo also broke Sungwoo's daydream. He said that the supermarket there looked familiar. Jisoo continued her words, in fact, this is similar to our campus gate. Sungwoo looked at the surroundings and said that the area was large and there were lots of crowds. Maybe there was a tutorial here before. Jisoo wonders if you think something survived inside. Sungwoo thinks that like the previous incident, there will be lots of monsters. When there are many people, we cannot expect much. Kyungso also joined in the conversation. If so, there shouldn't be as many rural areas or mountains as there are, for example, Jeju Island or other islands. Hearing Kyungso's words, Jisoo smiled slightly. Sungwoo just remembered that Jisoo's family was on Jeju Island and told the others that there was no need to worry, because Jisoo also didn't plan to meet her family. Jisoo, a little gloomy, said that maybe they were fine because they were great people. Sungwoo also mutters, is the topic of family sensitive for him? We better limit it and not ask about it anymore. They continued their journey into the building with the skeleton werewolf leading the way. The system appeared, and it turned out that Sungwoo had entered a large-scale dungeon. Dungeon's name is Acropolis Cowboys. There was a note in the system that the entrance had been closed with magic. Find a way out of this building. Sungwoo still couldn't believe that all of this was dungeon. Jisoo shouted at Sungwoo because there was a purple light near Sungwoo. It turned out that the purple light was an active magic circle. After someone entered the dungeon, immediately behind the purple light, there were many eyes watching them from the darkness. The magic circle is also at the top of the room, but here the room we see is a different room from the one Sungwoo and his team are in. You can see Hanho falling from above, and it turns out the magic circle is a door that leads to another room. With fear, Hanho said, oh my god, where is this? While you can see the kobolds are watching Hanho. It turns out that the kobolds have intelligence and can speak human language. The monster says it is good he came in our trap. He is also alone now, so we're finished now. Hanho was surprised to see that the monster could talk like a human. Hanho confidently said that kobold is known to be the weakest. Even though I was alone before he finished speaking, he realized that he was alone. Then the system also checked Hanho. The system said that Hanho's survival from half a day to 30 seconds. The kobold monsters started attacking Hanho. So here you can see the kobold monster using a dagger as their weapon. Hanho fell in fear. He screamed for help. The monsters attacked Hanho and didn't forget to give words of holy wisdom because the monsters were weak. Hanho also realized that the attacks from the kobold monsters had no effect on him. He also remembered the skills he had. So one of the skills is to provide 10 seconds of protection. After killing the opponent, the kobold monsters were surprised to see Hanho's condition was fine. Hanho changed his body shape to become very large and said, who said I was weak? Jisoo hurriedly told Kyungso to speed up his movements because Jisoo was really worried about Sungwoo and Hanho's condition. Jisoo said, "We don't need to worry about Hanho. If she is with Sungwoo, or if she is alone." Before Jisoo has finished speaking, there's a splash of red liquid from the hallway right in front of Jisoo. Jisoo shouted, "Hanho, are you okay?" Hanho, with his stiff pose, was surprised to see Jisoo's presence. Jisoo approached Hanho while looking at the kobold's corpse lying around and said, "Did you do all this, Hanho?" Very confidently saying, "It is one of my new talents. The person who is strong against the weak is melee." After hearing Hanho brag about himself, Jisoo changed the subject. So only Sungwoo was left alone. Hanho also said that there was no need to worry about Sungwoo because they knew that Sungwoo's strength was the strongest of the three of them. You can see Sungwoo's condition now, who is fighting the kobold troops. We are shown the corpse of the kobold monster lying around. It turns out that here Sungwoo and the skeleton troops are looking at the surrounding conditions. Sungwoo has the same thoughts as Jisoo. He was worried about Hanho's condition and said that this building was bigger than I thought. It might be difficult to find a way out of here. Sungwoo suddenly stopped in his tracks. He was shocked after seeing a corpse in front of him. Still alive, the man coughed and had red liquid come out of his mouth. The wound would be difficult to save using the potion the man brought. With difficulty, he tried to point towards something, but it turned out he was pointing towards the city. And he said that city. Sungwoo swiftly took the city and brought it closer to the man. Sungwoo wonders if this city has high-quality potions. After opening, the contents of the city was an egg whose name was not yet known. There are two interesting things from this system message. First, the classification of this egg is an exclusive item for 5-star Dragon Knights. Second, the note from the system says that if you protect the egg, once this egg hatches, the destiny of the owner will change. Sungwoo was surprised to see the egg. The man coughed again and released red liquid from his mouth. The man said haltingly, "The token boss monster is with me." Sungwoo asked in confusion, "What token do you mean?" The man was seriously injured, he confirmed. The man could not continue his words because the injuries he received were very serious. He breathed his last breath in front of Sungwoo. Sungwoo said that this world is truly unfair. Sungwoo muttered, "A 5-star Dragon Knight, it's a shame he died here. Maybe this kid went into the shop and ended up trapped underground. He might have been able to fight boss monsters before. If you look at the details, this is a job with very high potential. I don't think this guy can handle his job well. It says this is an unknown egg, but isn't this a dragon egg?" Then all this made sense. He forced himself to hand over this egg even though he was dying. The kobold monster also noticed Sungwoo's presence. They immediately attacked Sungwoo. When they were about to attack Sungwoo, they were surprised by the presence of the skeleton army. The monster was easily defeated by the skeleton troops. Sungwoo said, pretending that what he is doing now is to avenge that child. So the child Sungwoo meant was the man from earlier. Then the scene shows Sungwoo and his skeleton army slaughtering kobold monsters. Sungwoo got 150 gold from defeating a kobold monster. The fight continued. Sungwoo muttered, "This is strange, they are still attacking even though the current situation is that they are being slaughtered." Sungwoo continued muttering, "Don't they have intelligence? They even kept coming non-stop like zombies." Suddenly, there was an explosion in front of Righty. It turns out there was a kobold monster that attacked Sungwoo using magic. Sungwoo ordered his skeleton troops to be on standby. A skeleton army immediately attacked the kobold. From behind, the skeleton troops managed to land a surprise attack and managed to defeat the monster. It turns out that the monster is called Kobold Magician. Sungwoo continued with the remaining kobold monsters. System messages continued to rain down on Sungwoo, who succeeded in eliminating the kobold monster and got 150 gold. Sungwoo also managed to level up. He said he was eager to increase the number of troops he could control. It turns out that Sungwoo got a new skill here. The skill is called Explosion Corpse. So this skill can cause an explosion with corpses as the explosive material. The kobold monsters seem to have no end. They are hunting for Sungwoo again. Sungwoo told the skeleton orc to step back because he was going to use the skill he had just acquired. The newly arrived kobold will be the guinea pig for Sungwoo's new skills. Suddenly, the corpses of the defeated kobolds began to explode. The kobold was very surprised to see what was happening. While the kobold was still digesting what had happened, the kobold's corpse, which was scattered around, was blown up by Sungwoo and resulted in a very large explosion. The panel shifts to show the kobold monster hearing the sound of an explosion. It turned out they were on patrol and they noticed the sound of an explosion coming from in front of them. When they opened the door that was right in front of the monster, they saw Rady lunging towards them one by one. They were defeated. Kobold Magician screams in fear at Righty and attacks Righty with his fireball. With very fast speed, Righty managed to dodge the attack. And suddenly, Righty was behind the Cobalt Magician. Sun Wu praised Righty's greatness, he said. I thought you were really reliable. Here we see the shy face of Righty the Apan. Continue walking while saying, I think there will be something important in this area because there are many monsters guarding this area. But Sun Wu was surprised after seeing the many tree roots. Suddenly a message from the system appeared. A high-class magician boss monster had appeared. There are also notes from the system. There is a strong, indestructible barrier. To eliminate it, it is mandatory to find and destroy the 3 cores in the dance set. So there's a barrier that protects this boss. No wonder he didn't stand up and there were no subordinates to protect him. The boss monster is seen smiling, realizing Sun Wu's presence. Sun Wu continued his words. Maybe this was just a strategy to buy time. Suddenly, a red system appeared saying that the boss monster used low-class instant death magic. Layers in dungeon that are at levels below 10 will immediately die. This skill will be active in 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 30 seconds. Sun Wu was shocked after seeing the system and muttered, what does this all mean? That instant death means all team members will die. So the reason the couple kept coming was to buy us time. Sun Wu approached the boss monster and said, so this won't be damaged by normal attacks. The boss monster laughed with joy after seeing Sun Wu's panicked face. Sun Wu told his skeleton army to take something. The monster boss wondered about what Sun Wu would do. It turns out the skeletons were collecting the corpses of Cobalt monsters. Sun Wu also ordered his skeleton troops to place them right in front of the boss monster. The boss monster still didn't know what Sun Wu was doing. Then Sun Wu looked for a safe place to take cover because he was going to blow up the corpses. Then Sun Wu activated his skill. Instantly, a reddish glow adorned the boss monster's face. The explosion made by Sun Wu was very large, so this attack could be said to be Sun Wu's strongest attack so far. After the explosion, the condition of the building was increasingly destroyed. Sun Wu came out of his hiding place. He said he thought he had gone too far. Here you can see that the boss monster is still very healthy. Sun Wu had already predicted this incident. The boss monster felt very angry. As a result of what Sun Wu did, he risked his life as the price. To reduce skill activation here, it can be seen that the remaining time is from 52 minutes to 25 minutes. Sun Wu could only be silent and shocked after seeing the time running out. The monster looked at Sun Wu and laughed at the expression Sun Wu was showing. The scenes moved to show the condition of the abandoned meat storage warehouse. It can be seen that Sun Wu and the skeleton army are in a hurry. 333. He said that there should be a chorus here. Sun Wu also managed to find the core. Righty immediately destroyed the GOR, and there were 2 more cores left to destroy. The time remaining visible on the system was 19 minutes and 27 seconds. Sun Wu here looks very panicked. He says that he lives on the top floor and on a part of the roof that he hasn't checked. It turns out that Sun Wu awakened the Cobalt Magician who turned into an army of skeletons. Because they meet the minimum number, the synergy list is active. The effect of the synergy list provides a casting speed of 20%. So casting speed is like how long it takes for a spell to cast magic. Sun Wu was shocked after seeing the system notification saying that he could see the memory of the Cobalt corpse. He also used this power to see the location of the core. He pointed towards the electronics corner on the first floor. After he went to the first floor, Sun Wu saw Cobalt corpses lying everywhere. He said, is Jisoo taking care of them? Then he got a system that said that the core on the first floor had been destroyed. The remaining time is 16 minutes and 18 seconds. 1 more core is needed to cancel the effect of the boss monster's skill. It turned out that Sun Wu had sent a death message through his skeleton army. He previously ordered the skeleton troops to tell his team that they had to destroy the core in this building. Suddenly, a Cobalt monster crashed. Sun Wu approached the direction of the attack. He shouted, Jisoo, quickly find Hanho and Kyungso. I will take care of the remaining scores. Then here you can see Hanho, who was transformed into giant mode. He told Sun Wu that he was late. Sun Wu and Righty were shocked to see what was in front of them. They rubbed their eyes as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Then Sun Wu narrowed his eyes and tried to guess who the person in front of him was. Now when Sun Wu was confused, Jisoo came. He said that he had destroyed the core, and Jisoo asked, what kind of situation is this? It turned out that Sun Wu asked in surprise, is that Hanho? How could he be like that? Hanho gallantly said, let's talk after this. Don't beat around the bush and quickly destroy the last core. Then Sun Wu could only answer in surprise, okay. The system message appeared again, saying that the remaining time limit was 13 minutes and 27 seconds. You can see Sun Wu and his team being surrounded by Cobalt monsters. The monster tried to continue buying time. Jisoo shouted at Sun Wu and said that the core was over there. It can be seen that the remaining time is only 10 minutes and 57 seconds. The Cobalt troops desperately protect the last core. He also told Righty to jump and use his hands as support. Sung Woo threw Righty up. All the Cobalt monsters were shocked to see Righty's actions, and in the end Righty succeeded in destroying the last core. The remaining time is still 9 minutes and 8 seconds. Sung Woo immediately ordered his skeleton troops to slaughter the remaining monsters. The system message appeared again. You have destroyed all cores. The barrier will soon disappear. Sung Woo said, okay, for now we just have to stop the direct death magic. He was very annoyed when he remembered the face of the boss monster. Hanho called Sung Woo, weren't we able to defeat him easily because you got a new skill that can explode corpses? Said Hanho in surprise. Seeing Hanho return to his normal form, Sung Woo said that this method had been done before. He was used to it and the boss monster would be alert in the same way. Hanho also suggested something. He said to blow up the building. Immediately, Sung Woo ordered his team to get ready to defeat the boss monster. Because there is only a little time left. You can see a tree in the boss monster room. Here the boss monster was surprised. Why was Sung Woo able to destroy the 3 cores? Sung Woo also mocked the boss monster because his fate was hanging in the balance. He also ordered the skeleton mash troops to attack the boss monster. An explosion occurred. A system appeared that said that basic death magic was immediately cancelled. Sung Woo, full of annoyance, said, your skill has been cancelled, and what do you want to show now? Suddenly, a lot of tree roots came out of the boss monster's mouth. Hanho was scared and said he had really changed because of Sung Woo's words. A system appeared that said that a real monster had appeared. This boss monster is called Brave 3 Spirits. The boss monster shouted after them. Then swiftly, the skeleton troops tried to block the boss monster's movements. To buy time, Sung Woo's team ran away suddenly because the boss monster's eyes changed. Sung Woo was very surprised to see one part of the boss monster's body. It turned out that the boss monster prepared its attack and immediately attacked them. Jisoo also released her skill. She said that the natural enemy of wood is fire. Then he will burn it. Suddenly, all the fire in Jisoo disappeared as if it had been absorbed. Sung Woo shouted, warning Jisoo to get away immediately. The boss monster was shocked because there was a corpse heading towards him. A big explosion occurred. Right at the boss monster, Hanho was seen covering his ears because the explosion that occurred was quite large. Sung Woo wondered, did the attack hit or not? The boss monster was hit by Sung Woo's attack, but we can see that the boss monster is regenerating. Attacks continued to be given by Sung Woo and his skeleton troops. Don't forget that the skeleton beach troops also help attack the back of the boss monster. They continue to attack without stopping. Hanho said to Sung Woo, the boss monster keeps regenerating, can we defeat it? Sung Woo also told him to keep attacking him. A system message appeared saying that the life of the boss monster had been consumed. Lives are replaced using the boss monster's life payment. So the boss monster's life runs out because it is used for continuous regeneration. It turns out that Sung Woo also uses the Devil Bloodstone item, which has the effect that when the target's life runs out, the target's life will be taken away. This orb also has the effect of stealing the opponent's life. The boss monster was relentless, continuing to attack Sung Woo as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, Sung Woo saw a blue light from above his head. He shouted to his team to immediately retreat because the blue light was the signal. Then all the skeleton troops and the 3 of them retreated, leaving the boss monster behind. They also left behind the boss monster, which was no longer able to chase them. Smiling evilly, Sung Woo said to the boss monster, didn't you realize how many of my skeleton troops disappeared? They are preparing a very special gift for you on the first floor. Suddenly, an explosion from the Cobalt corpse was created. The boss monster was unable to avoid the enormous explosion from the corpses on the first floor, and finally the boss monster fell to the first floor along with a huge explosion. A message from the system appears, you have earned 12,840 gold after defeating the boss monster. In fact, you have leveled up to level 10. It turns out that here Sung Woo has just reached level 10. He didn't think he could raise his level. Sung Woo was surprised to see a system message saying that he got a roulette ticket for successfully reaching level 10. Sung Woo is the 69th person to achieve this achievement. This achievement will be limited to the first 100 people. Here Sung Woo also got a system message saying the number of troops that could be raised had increased by 5. He also took his level up card. It turns out he got a skill card. Sung Woo's new skill is called Call the Dead. So this skill can raise 10 zombies. Sung Woo muttered, the 10 zombies I previously thought it would add to the capacity to raise the skeleton army, but fate said otherwise. The total army I can raise now is 25 monsters, 15 monsters from the skeleton army and 10 monsters from the zombie army. Sung Woo held his sword as if he was ready for this moment. He raised his sword and said, finally now we can hunt the vampire. The scene moves to show the condition of the room. After fighting the boss monster, here Sung Woo is holding the sword he got. The following is information about the items held by Sung Woo. It turns out that Sung Woo got this sword from a dead man who gave Sung Woo the egg item. This weapon must be used with 2 hands. This sword will be the key to awakening the Anaon egg. Because your job is different, you do not have the authority to do it. The system appeared again to get recognition. Of these items, you must store this egg for 5,000 days. There is a small note from the system. Every time the sword is covered in red liquid from a strong enemy, the egg will recognize you and speed up the hatching time. After reading that, Sung Woo glanced at the skeleton. Sung Woo complained about the very long time it took to wait for the egg to hatch, namely 5,000 days. 5,000 days is equivalent to 13 years. Jisoo also said, "It looks like it's a penalty given by the system because your job is different from what was requested. We'll grow old if we wait for this egg to hatch." Sung Woo also told his team about the egg. He says that the egg will admit it if he kills a stronger opponent. Sung Woo muttered, "The +6 value on this item cannot be underestimated. It seems like this sword won't break easily. I got a very powerful item." "This time I also cut," muttered Sung Woo. He heard a vibration from Sung Woo's cell phone. He got a message from someone with the code name Raider A. He said that he was waiting for the vampires, and to be more precise, they were at Hangung Square in Hwangsong. He also said that using the hidden comet feature would cost 300 gold to send. It turns out that Raider A is Taezang. Taezang muttered, "Thank God they are all safe." Then Sin moved to show Taezang and his friends being spies in the square. They sneak around and keep an eye on everyone in the area. Then a flashback scene is seen when Sung Woo gives instructions to Taezang. Sung Woo was the one who set the secret comments in the community. Sung Woo has prepared this for the future. So the function of the secret comments was to exchange important information with Sung Woo. Taezang was excited to hear Sung Woo's instructions. He said that at least this time he would help Sung Woo and his team return to their current state. Sung Woo commented on what Taezang did. Sung Woo said that the kid was a complete mess, then asked his skeleton army, "Did you guys find anything?" So here Sung Woo assigned his skeleton troops to search for something in this building. It turns out that Sung Woo was looking for the bodies of dead monsters in this building. Sung Woo finds 2 werewolf corpses with the goal of resurrecting the werewolf corpses and turning them into an army of skeletons. Sung Woo said, "With this, there are a total of 5 werewolf skeletons." Sung Woo also explained what the monsters in his army were. So there are Weber raid magicians and also werewolves, a total of 15 troops. With this, Sung Woo was ready to slaughter the vampires and head to the vampire gathering place in Suwon. Looks like Mag has arrived. Lots of people had gathered at the point they thought was the set zone. They were trapped by the vampires in a safe area in the city of Suwon, Hwangsong. It turns out that vampire supplies were waiting for them from the top of the building. One of them said that it was very boring. The vampire friend said, "When will all the food come?" However, there was a debate between them. The debate between the vampires is actually fighting to book the humans they want to taste. Then a vampire came and shouted at them to get ready to go out. One of the vampires asked, "Are the questions starting soon?" He answered, "No, not yet. Our job is to hunt down the people who attacked our factory." So what this vampire means is Sung Woo and his team. Other vampires complain about having a troublesome job. He also explained that the situation now is different. That person was nearby, and the other vampires thought Sung Woo was very stupid. He said that Sung Woo was unresponsive. He immediately led an army of vampires to hunt down Sung Woo. Here we see Taezang being a spy for the vampire troops. You can see the group of vampires walking somewhere. One of the vampires said that Sung Woo was hiding in the elementary school near the square. The vampire again said Sung Woo was stupid because he thought Taezang didn't know that he had been cursed. This means that Sung Woo could be tracked easily by the vampires. Suddenly they stopped because they saw something. It can be seen that there is a large wolf corpse there. They approached the corpse of the monster. They checked the condition of the monster. One of the vampires smelled a scent he recognized. He said he smelled a red liquid. The fire wolf and the smell came from there. It almost mocked manager Kim, who lost to Sung Woo. They prided themselves on being strong, therefore they entered the battle team. The vampire looked down on Sung Woo again. He said that if there was any blood left behind, other monsters would gather. "It seems he doesn't know the basics of hunting," said the vampire. His friend also pointed out that the blood was heading into the auditorium. He quickly ordered his vampire troops to immediately attack and enter the auditorium. He reminded his friends to be wary of Sung Woo's summoned monster. He also said that Prince Sung Woo's monster is a skeleton. The only thing you have to be wary of from Sung Woo's skeleton army is the skeleton werewolf. The vampire muttered, "Its combat strength will only be 5 werewolves at most." If that's the case, then we have enough people on our side. I am the one who is directly under the vampire lord. I have the strength to fight 2 werewolves. At the same time, they immediately entered the auditorium. The vampire shouted, "How dare you go against our vampire lord? This will be your grave." Sung Woo also put on his act. He pretended to be surprised by the vampire's presence. The vampire said, "Why are there only a few skeletons here?" Lord said that there would be around 10 skeletons. The other vampires say it doesn't matter. Then the female vampire said, "Would you like to wash your neck?" Sung Woo pretended to run away. Hastily, the vampires laughed at Sung Woo's behavior. The vampire belittled Sung Woo and said, "Why are you running toward that door? You guys blocked it yourselves." Sung Woo finally stopped running and said, "So this is the place of death for you." They were silent and thought Sung Woo was joking. Sung Woo said, "You guys won't just stay here, right?" Sung Woo said that the vampires were very naive. Just judge Sung Woo by his skeleton raising skills. Sung Woo smiled evilly at the vampire. He said that the skeleton he had was not just any skeleton. Sung Woo also summoned his skeleton troops. Then the skill from Sung Woo's second job was released, namely Field Blade. This skill strengthens the skeleton troops and gives a buff effect to the opponent. Apart from that, Sung Woo also summons zombie troops. Sung Woo sat down casually and said, "You are all the same. Look now who is surrounded by whom." A system message appeared showing that Sung Woo had succeeded in killing a player. Sung Woo said again, "Now you know the strength of the skeleton cook army." As they're showing no mercy, Sung Woo ordered the skeleton troops to attack again and again. The synergy list is also active and provides additional effects that are useful for strengthening skeleton troops. The area was covered in purple mist, so they couldn't tell who was friend or foe. They also felt that their strength was getting weaker if they were in the fog. Sung Woo says this is what happens if you fight a skeleton army with a bunch of vampires. The female vampire jumped at Sung Woo. He said he would immediately finish off Sung Woo so that all the skeletons would be destroyed. But suddenly there was an explosion when the vampire jumped. It turns out that the one who attacked the vampire was a skeleton kobold magician. He quickly slashed the vampire into 2 parts. Sung Woo got 2,000 gold after defeating the player. After that, Sung Woo's skeleton troops were hit. The one who attacked them was the leader of the vampires. He was very angry because the skeletons dared to attack them. He was also surrounded by zombie troops. The vampire leader looked down on the zombies. He said, "Is this all you are capable of?" "My troops are bigger," said the vampire immediately. The vampire wore a surprised expression. It turns out his vampire friend had bitten him to gain strength. The vampire was very angry. He said, "Don't depend on me, you pathetic vampire." The vampire also targeted him and he said that apparently you were there. I will finish you off. Meanwhile, Sung Woo was still sitting and relaxing watching the fight between his subordinates. He immediately lunged towards Sung Woo. He said you were the only enemy of the vampire lord. Sung Woo also mocked the vampire. "You shouldn't be running around like that." The vampire was taken aback by what appeared nearby. Second flashback scene hours before the fight. Sung Woo instructed the skeleton troops to wait for the arrival of the vampire troops. He positioned each skeleton in the place Sung Woo planned. He also told them in detail the position where they had to stay. Then Sung Woo said your job is to make an explosion. Hearing Sung Woo's words, the skeleton army was shocked. Taezango seemed to tell Sung Woo that he was just a skull, not a corpse. Sung Woo's skill that makes the explosion must be from a corpse. Then Sung Woo activated his zombie call skill. He grinned, "What about these corpses? I guess I can use it." It can be seen that the zombies that Sung Woo resurrected have the same eyes as the skeleton troops. Sung Woo also formulated his strategy. Back again to the current situation. Sung Woo activated his corpse explosion skill. The vampire fell and limped. Sung Woo summoned the vampire and said, "You are like a burning bug." Meanwhile, the vampire was very, very angry with Sung Woo. Then the skeleton army attacked the vampire again and again. The vampire said, "You think you can fight a god? Do not dream." Sung Woo was ready to finish off the vampire. Taezang managed to land the finishing blow on the vampire. He got 20,000 gold after killing a special player. It can be seen that there are 4,949 days left before the egg hatches. So if you forget the number of days in the egg, it will continue to decrease. If Sung Woo killed a monster that was stronger than him. Apart from that, Taezang is absolutely obliged to deliver the final attack using the special sword he carries. Sung Woo also replenished his troops. He ordered his skeleton to immediately collect the corpses that were still intact. Soon Sung Woo succeeded in resurrecting the vampires. Hueless rays were obtained. The list's synergy was active because Sung Woo had 5 vampire skeletons in his troops. Sung Woo also said that everything was ready. Sung Woo read the message on his cell phone. He said here that Hanho and Jusu had succeeded in infiltrating the vampire lord, who must have felt his subordinates die. So of course he will be in a hurry. It turns out that what he said was true. Here you can see the vampire lord rushing out of the room. On the other hand, red liquid was also seen splashing on the floor. The vampire was seen guarding the line of people gathered. One of the people pointing to the direction in front of them was shocked to see a werewolf stuck with a spear. They also praised the management there. They thought that the manager of the place was a good and strong person. Here they don't know yet that they were all trapped by vampires. Hanho gave Jisoo the code to get ready. It turned out they were confiscating weapons for people who entered the area. Jisoo felt annoyed because she heard the vampire's conversation. They deliberately confiscated people's weapons to make it easier to finish them off later. Then suddenly Taezong came and called Jisoo's name. He whispered to Jisoo that both of your swords had been hidden in a safe place. It turned out that one of Taezong's friends had a job, so doing this was very easy for him. His friend also asked the Empire, what about what I asked for? Have you prepared it? Taezong also said that he had done it well. The staff there said that the next person behind the staff was scolding someone. He tried to hide his weapon. Inspections continue to be carried out. They are also closely guarded by the staff there. Suddenly, there were footsteps approaching the crowd. It turns out that person is a vampire lord. The vampire lord came angrily. He said, I have sent many people, but you still lose to that person. The person in question is Sung-woo. He also said to Jisoo, that's them. The masks they use are definitely to cover their fangs. Jisoo muttered, the sword has been put in a safe place. Now we have to move according to plan and wait for the arrival of those who will be responsible for all this incident. The vampire lord shouted, attention everyone. Hanho said to Jisoo, it looks like we're surrounded. Now the vampire lord started his speech. Wow, it seems humans have stopped evolving. In your opinion, how did this disaster happen? Aren't you curious about all this happening? Can anyone answer? Yes, as usual. No one can answer that. Then the people there started to get scared. They felt there was something strange about that person. Lord said, that's why you're all useless. While removing his mask, he said that your destiny is to become victims of our evolution. Then all at once, the vampire's subordinates stomped their sticks onto the ground. Everyone there still didn't know what was going on. They took off their masks. At the same time, the vampire lord said, we are the people who were chosen to evolve. So we are the ones who will rule the future of vampires. The vampire lunged towards the crowd. They shouted, I will enjoy the dish. Then there are people who are planning to escape from this situation. He pointed to a quiet place. Suddenly, there was an electric barrier that was installed. It turned out that the electricity had been installed to anticipate people running away. The vampire said happily, come here all of you. Let me taste you guys. Jisoo also told everyone to get behind her. Meanwhile, Sung-woo was able to explain that it was an electrical item that made it impossible for them to escape. The vampire lord was surprised to see Jisoo and Hanho holding weapons. There is a bus that wants to break into that area. Quickly, the bus managed to break through the electrical item. The bus stopped. Hanho and Jisoo immediately told them to run away, because the electrical item has been successfully disabled. The vampires felt very upset because something happened that was beyond their expectations, so their prey managed to escape. Then you saw people starting to get off the bus. The vampire lord seemed to realize who it was. From his expression, he felt very annoyed, and it turned out that the person driving the bus was Sung-woo. He said, I'm out late to the party. Instead, he glanced at the vampire lord with a condescending look. Aren't you vampires having a party? Has the atmosphere changed because a powerful vampire has died? Then the vampire lord said that this was the perfect moment. We haven't even had an appetizer yet. The vampire lord also said that since everyone is gathered, we can start the party. The vampire lord said that this party was a bit of a mess. The female vampire next to him, the lady who also agreed with the lord vampire's words, immediately jumped out of her place. He ordered his subordinates to follow him to chase the person who ran away. The vampire lord said to Sung-woo, shouldn't you be blocking them? Sung-woo also said, I already have trusted colleagues, so I don't need to do that. The vampire lord with a hearty laugh, he said, partner, in a situation like this, you're so ridiculous. Don't make me laugh. Sung-woo said to the vampire lord, whatever you can say, but I also have other close friends. Then the skeleton army appeared and jumped closer to Sung-woo. He also managed to land right in front of Lord Vampire. The vampire lord said, don't tell me you want to fight me with this kind of thing. He immediately hit the skeleton very easily. The skeleton apparently survived the attack from the vampire lord. The vampire lord attacked the skeleton army again. Sung-woo looked down on the vampire lord and said, as usual, a neatly decorated party is really cool, isn't it? It turned out that in the skeleton army, the corpses of the kobolds were placed. The corpses were blown up right in front of the vampire lord. The vampire lord's subordinates were shocked to see their lord being attacked with such a powerful explosive force. The vampire was burned to the ground. The vampire subordinates immediately approached their lord. Sung Woo immediately jumped onto the bus. The vampire's subordinates told their friends to chase Sung Woo. It turns out that Sung Woo deliberately lured them towards the pile of corpses. The vampire also saw cracks in the sky. He thought Sung Woo had escaped from the gaps. They were all trapped in the bus. Sung Woo also said to activate the corpse explosion skill. Instantly, the bus exploded violently. The other vampire subordinates couldn't believe what they were seeing. He did not expect that they would be eradicated in this way. Then behind the fire, a vampire's hand came out. It seems there are vampires who managed to survive the explosion. The one chasing the fleeing people here is the lady who is leading the chase. One of his subordinates heard a very loud explosion. Meanwhile, the other subordinates were worried about the vampire lord. The lady who said it was a very loud explosion, she didn't worry about Lord Vampire because she knew his strength. The lady who muttered while thinking about Sung Woo, "I've troubled the vampire lord a lot. If I went there alone, I would be committing suicide." Madam who scolded her subordinates, "You should quickly chase after the victims who ran away. Don't worry about useless things. You can see that there are bodies lying on the road." The lady who felt someone was watching her suddenly dodged an attack. It turns out he received an attack from Jisoo. He said, "Who exactly are you? How dare to attack me?" Jisoo points to her sword and says, "This is the end." The vampire mistress said, "How dare you act like that? Even though you know my identity yourself, you're not the vampire lord type either. So you really don't deserve him. You're more suited to the vampire underlings." Then Jisoo said, "Shut up and come on, old granny." And the lady who said, "Well, I'll tear you lowly humans to shreds." The scene is taken back to the multi-story building. Here, Hanho directs people to hide in the building. Taesing approached Hanho. He said that everything was going according to plan. Taesing also said, "With this, vampires won't dare to approach us." Hanho answered it was clear it was going smoothly because this was all Sung Woo's plan. It could be seen that they managed to collect daggers left over from the fight. Taesing also replied that he might not use the deck because his fighting style was different from Hanho. Then suddenly there were footsteps approaching them. He said, "Apparently the vampire lord hasn't tightened his guard, so I need to go around." It turned out that there was someone from the vampires who was walking around the area. He also regretted that there was nothing fun about this party. While grinning, he said, "Since no one is targeting me, then I will be the one to hunt them down." Taesing also encouraged Hanho because he had prepared himself to fight the vampire. He shouted as expected of a college kid. They are indeed reliable, but different from Hanho. He muttered while holding back his panic, "What should we do now?" Taesing lunged at the vampire. He said, "This vampire looks weak. Let's finish this vampire right now." But Hanho said differently. "Wait for Taesing, okay?" In his heart, "You idiot." He attacked without thinking. The vampire managed to dodge all of Taesing's attacks easily. He said, "Who allowed you to look down on me?" "It's true that compared to others, I'm one of the weak ones," he continued. "But I don't that long until I can be defeated by you." An insect suddenly attacks the vampire. He also seemed to have difficulty avoiding it. Just as he was silent, there was another attack trying to hit the vampire. It turns out it was an attack from Taesing. The vampire jumped and managed to dodge. After seeing the vampire jump, Hanho grinned. "So you choosing to fight in the air makes it easier to hit you." Quickly, Hanho attacked the vampire with his deck attack. The vampire fell after being hit by a dagger attack from Hanho. Taesing again praised Hanho's greatness, but Hanho still couldn't believe what he had done. Hanho suddenly realized something. Usually, when the enemy has lost, the system appears, but until now the system has not appeared. Could it be? And it was seen that Hanho's dagger had been broken into pieces. The vampire was very angry. As a result of Hanho's attack, he said, "You have ruined my handsome face." We are invited back to the scene after the bus blew up. It can be seen that the vampire corpses are completely burned, but there are silhouettes of vampires trying to get out of the flames. Sung Woo said, "Okay, it looks like something interesting will appear soon." It turns out there were vampires who managed to survive the incident. The vampire said once again, "You will perish now." The scene shows Sung Woo's fight against a vampire whose wings are visible. Sung Woo also gave orders to the skeleton troops to attack the vampire. He raised a skeleton to attack the vampire, then quickly ordered the skeleton orb to throw its spear at the vampire. The vampire didn't stay still. He managed to dodge like a wisp of smoke. The vampire attacked Sung Woo back with the power he had just gained. Sung Woo frantically said, "It seems like my skeleton orb army is no match for him." You can see here that the vampire is killing off one by one the skeleton orb troops who have landed an attack. Finally, the vampire skeleton army was surprised by something. It turns out that Sung Woo raised zombies to attack the vampire. The vampire also realized that his subordinates had been killed by these zombies. He shouted at Sung Woo, "Don't compare me to them. I am Lord Vampire. When he screamed, it turned out that Sung Woo's zombie army managed to bite the vampire lord's arm. The vampire was surprised by the zombie's behavior, which seemed to know no fear. The vampire lifted the zombie's head. He said, "I appreciate your steadfastness, but your attack was still not enough to injure me." The vampire immediately attacked and finished off the zombie troops. Sung Woo immediately activated the card explosion skill. However, the vampire can be seen protecting himself with his wings. He activated the blood fill skill. Suddenly, Sung Woo felt panicked because blood smoke began to appear around Sung Woo's fighting area. Feeling extremely panicked, he muttered, "The vampire managed to survive the large-scale attack. He managed to protect his body with his wings. If that's the case, I have to take out the werewolf skeletons because there are 3 werewolves, so the synergy effect is active. Tough is still useful because the synergy effect gives me more strength if I do it one by one. But this bastard is different." Suddenly, the skeleton army's attack stopped. It turns out that the vampire was the one who stopped the attack in the skeleton army. He said, "You think this alone can defeat me?" He also split the skeleton into 2 parts. Sung Woo frantically muttered, "Who is this vampire destroying 3 werewolf skeletons with 1 attack?" He immediately instructed the skeleton to use long-range attacks. The vampire easily avoided all the attacks launched by Sung Woo. The vampire said, "So boring. These are humans, they have limits. That was why they couldn't be compared to the evolved vampire race." Sung Woo answered, "Say it's evolution from vampires, you say? With a face like that, you say evolution?" The vampire said, "This doesn't look good. Do you think this face is better compared to ordinary humans?" The vampire also said that humans have parts that can never be passed. The vampire continued to say, "From ancient times until now, humans are very boring creatures. I'm really looking forward to this change where I become a killer in a story." He continued to explain, "The opportunity I had been waiting for had finally arrived. Finally, I can stop this boring human life. This body of mine is the chosen one. Unlike ordinary humans, I was chosen to lead this world with the power that was deliberately given to me." Sung Woo was tired of hearing the vampire's chatter. He said, "I think you have a cool plan in mind. It turns out that all this time my thinking was wrong." Sung Woo was here arguing with the vampire about what is right and wrong, because the debate has reached a dead end. Finally, the vampire proved that all his words were true. Here Sung Woo will also prove who was right and who was wrong all this time. Suddenly, he realized something about the previous madam. There is a scene of a sword that is covered in red liquid. We are again invited to see Jisoo's fight against the madam seen here, the madam who can't believe what is happening. He still couldn't believe he could be defeated by Jisoo, even though he felt he had evolved. Mrs. Yang then attacked again blindly. She felt this was unreasonable. Mrs. Yang muttered, "She is only human, but why can't I land a single attack on her?" Here, Mrs. Yang really doesn't believe in Jisoo's strength. He kept thinking, can Jisoo still be considered a human? Then Jisoo said, "You want to know, right? Why can't you touch me, old grandmother?" Jisoo muttered, diving herself, "Even though I'm not as strong as Sung Woo, but I kept trying to be strong until now. Not only do I rely on level ups, but I also learn from the experience of fighting, which I always do." Jisoo also said to Mrs. Yang, "I already know the limits of your strength. Even though I'm not as strong as you, I can read that your attacks are very monotonous and only attack straight. You've only gotten XP from the vampire lord so far." While slashing Mrs. Yang, Jisoo said, "You don't have the slightest fighting experience. That's why you lost to me." Having been hit by Jisoo's attack, Mrs. Yang screamed in pain. He lay on the ground without being able to do anything. Jisoo said again, "Thank you for starting to make me not as weak as a normal human." Having said that, Jisoo immediately killed Mrs. Yang, and at the end of her life, Mrs. Yang screamed for help from the vampire lord. After a long fight, Jisoo was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. Jisoo's character development from initially being inferior to Sung Woo, but over time, Jisoo can continue to develop and try to stand on an equal footing by telling herself. If it goes according to plan, now Hanho will definitely be evacuating, while Sung Woo will be fighting Lord Vampire. Then we are taken back to Hanho and Taezing's fight. Here you can see Taezing and Hanho slumped on the ground. The vampire approached them and said, "It turns out you two are just insects." Here Hanho and Taezing still never give up and try to fight again against the vampire. The vampire grinned at Hanho and Taezing's efforts. He also added, "If I just finish you off then, this won't be any fun." Then the vampire offered Hanho and Taezing to become vampires. Hanho was surprised to hear the vampire's words. The vampire explained, they could become vampires even if they have chosen a previous job. The vampire also said that they have to choose a different path to survive. Not just choosing a job card, he said, "Here we are not just choosing a job to survive, but also choosing the path we take to survive." So the vampire explains the best way is to become a parasite. He continued to say that many people were not ready for a situation like this. The best thing to do is stick with strong people and take advantage of them. That's what is called a parasite, so join us. It will make your life easier. So here the vampire tries to persuade Hanho and Tazeng. Hanho also said to the vampire that there was a point. Meanwhile, Tazeng was surprised to hear Hanho's words. As for what he said, but you don't know that I have chosen the person I will follow, and that person is much stronger than your people. Then suddenly Tazeng's friends helped Hanho. When the vampire's gaze was diverted, Hanho quickly threw his dagger at the vampire. The vampire quickly dodged Hanho's attack. He said, "You are such a fool." Here it can be seen that Hanho's attack actually hit his friend Tazeng. The vampire was shocked to see what happened. It turned out that Hanho was not targeting the vampire, but rather the kobold corpse brought by his friend. Hanho mocked the vampire, but Hanho's friends were surprised by something. It turned out that they were surprised to see Hanho's giant body. The vampire also doesn't know why Hanho became that big. He continued to attack Hanho with his strength. He thinks that making big changes will not change any situation. He was surprised because nothing happened to Hanho's body. Then Hanho said to the vampire with an intimidating aura, "Now you have no chance of winning." The vampire immediately attacked Hanho again because he didn't believe what was happening. Tazeng immediately attacked the vampire with his fists. The vampire felt looked down on by Hanho and Tazeng. He also prepared his attack. Tazeng kept his distance and prepared to receive an attack from the vampire. But with agility, Hanho managed to block the vampire's attack and said, "Don't forget that I'm also taking part in this fight." Hanho said to the vampire bravely, "I emphasize once again, I told you that you have no chance of winning against me." Here Hanho has high self-confidence. The fight continued that night. Here the fight between Hanho, Tazeng, and the vampire is shown again. Here Tazeng and his friends prepare an attack on the vampire, and Tazeng was seen using a boxing skill called Iron Punch. The vampire muttered, "Their attacks are not that strong, but their cooperation can be said to be compact. Their attacks from different directions made me unable to maintain my position." On the other hand, they have people who have very large bodies and can be their seals. Besides, these people can move places very quickly. They are all very dangerous. Then Hanho realized that his hands were starting to get smaller. He said, "Damn, my strength is starting to disappear." Hanho's strength has limits. The vampire finally realized that Hanho's power had disappeared. He said, "That's right, there's no power in this world that has no limits." Hanho shouted at the vampire, "Now is the end for you." Hanho raised his hand and apparently threw a thunderbolt into the air. Then the vampire muttered, "Why are there monsters flying in the air?" This is the guy who threw the kobold off the top of the building. He said, "Your work is right on target." Here Hanho explained, "You think my skills will disappear? No, my skill can be maintained if I hit a target that is flying in the air." Hanho's team immediately surrounded the vampire again so that he couldn't escape from the fight. Hanho said, "You told me earlier that to survive, you have to depend on people and become parasites, but you are very wrong. The thing that is important to survive is that you have trustworthy friends who can help you in all situations and fight together. That is the so-called way to survive." Hanho also said love and peace at the end of his lecture. The vampire's face was already pale because he felt his death was near. They immediately ganged up on the vampire. Back to Sung Woo's fight against the vampire lord. Lord Vampire already felt that his two men had been defeated by Sung Woo's team. He was very angry and said, "How stupid you guys are. You can be defeated by lowly humans." Sung Woo also said, "The reality of vampires is that there is nothing good about being a vampire. In fact, you have more weaknesses than humans." The vampire was very angry and said, "You have no right to say things that don't make sense." Then Sung Woo said, "I'll tell you what the vampire's weakness is. The first weakness is that they cannot use any weapons because they have sharp nails. The second weakness is their regeneration because vampires have fast regeneration. That's why they also have weak defense." The vampire lord denied everything Sung Woo said. He said that is what is called true strength. Sung Woo continued, "The third weakness is that they don't have lives, so vampires only depend on their skills and all need red liquid. To activate it, lift the art item that Sung Woo always uses." He said, "You don't even realize that your stamina has been drained, but you still act arrogantly." The system also shows information about Sung Woo's items. This item is called Devil Blade Stone, so when the opponent's life runs out, this item will consume the opponent's strength. So this item could be said to be very fraudulent. The vampire glanced at Sung Woo's item. He said, "How dare you play with me?" The fourth weakness of vampires is that you talk too much. If I were you, I would directly attack the skeleton controller, instead of attacking the skeleton. The vampire, with his remaining strength, activated the vampire skill, saying it was too late. "If you want to attack me, I can restore all my strength by replenishing the red liquid I consumed." When the vampire spoke, Righty was ready to attack. The vampire looked down on Righty. He said, "Is that just a northern goblin?" The vampire said to Sung Woo, "Are you relying on this little skeleton to fight me?" "No kidding." Then Righty immediately released his skill, namely one-arm warrior slash, and Sung Woo also added the last weakness of the vampire. That is also judging people's strength only from the outside, so you easily lower your guard. From Righty's mouth, a bottle came out containing slime. The bottle hit the Lord Vampire's face directly. You can see the slime bottle falling onto the asphalt. Lord Vampire looked very, very sick due to being exposed to the liquid from the slime. Sung Woo smiled at this incident. He grinned and said, "I didn't expect this trick to be so effective." The vampire muttered, "Damn, my vision started to blur. I couldn't see clearly. I've lost a lot of blood. It's impossible to regenerate my eyes." For now, Sung Woo shouted to his skeleton troops, "Quickly end this now." The vampire continued to mumble, "I heard footsteps from the side. This is dangerous. I could die this time." Using his instincts, the vampire lord attacked blindly and haphazardly. Some of the skeleton troops were seen being destroyed by the attack from the vampire. Sung Woo also said, "In conditions like that, you could still fight that hard, but still it will end soon." The vampire muttered, "I need the red liquid. I need the red liquid immediately. I can smell a red liquid nearby." The vampire quickly turned towards the smell of the red liquid. Sung Woo says, "What is he doing?" "Fast. Don't let him get away quickly." The vampire jumped in the direction he was going. He mutters, "This is a red liquid. Finally, I found it. This red liquid is from the werewolf monster. It's a little bit, but it doesn't matter. I'll keep drinking it. If I had drunk it, I would have been able to beat them all. Not just the skeleton controller, but everyone in this area. I shouldn't have lowered my guard earlier." While muttering, the vampire was surprised by something. Sung Woo said from a distance, "I know you are in a hurry, but don't forget I'm here. Don't you think it was prepared for you on purpose?" Sung Woo immediately resurrected the werewolf's corpse, and the werewolf skeleton immediately landed an attack on the vampire lord. The vampire lord was seen falling from a height with the spear still impaled in his body. It can be seen that the effects of the fall of the vampire lord were quite severe. Here you can see a lot of red liquid coming out of the vampire lord's body. He said, "This can't be. There's no way I, the one who leads this world, will lose to a humble human." Sung Woo approached the vampire lord. Sung Woo said, "Sometimes when you are dying, you still dream of things that don't make sense." Here Sung Woo is seen ordering his skeleton troops not to show mercy to the vampire lord. Because of the deeds he had committed, they were so heinous that they had no end. The skeleton army immediately continued to attack the vampire lord. He fell and roared in pain. It could be seen that the vampire lord no longer had the slightest energy to speak. He was shocked when he saw in front of him there were corpses lying around. "Very funny," he said. No, I don't want to feel this anymore." Sung Woo immediately activated his skill. Then there was a very, very big explosion. A message from the system appears. You get 10,000 gold from defeating the special player. The system appears again. The contents of the system message say that you have completed the case given. You are entitled to 30,000 gold and liquid ticket items. A second system message also appeared saying that Sung Woo had successfully completed the dedicated. He succeeded in saving many people's lives. Prizes in the form of exclusive skills are given and your destiny has changed a little. Then Sung Woo's friends shouted his name from a distance. Hanho said, "I know you can definitely win. I trust you." Sung Woo turned his gaze towards his friends. He smiled. He muttered that even though the world is in chaos like this, I'm lucky I still have friends by my side. Sung Woo's team was in the middle of the crowd. Sung Woo says, "So these are the people who were trapped by the vampires. It looks like there are a lot of them too." The guy there said, "I don't know who they are, but they saved our lives." Other people also said, "I told you he was Co-157. He was the one who saved me and gave me food," and the people there were noisy talking about Sung Woo and his friends. Some people casually said, "It seems like you are already famous. Now many people are talking about you there." Sung Woo, looking worried, said it must be because of the community here. Sung Woo Rishi was seen because many people already recognized him. Then the people there pointed in another direction. He said, "So who are they?" Footsteps were seen approaching the area. The person said, "Huh, what is an army? Where did the army come from? Are they from the desert?" Then the soldier said to Sung Woo's team, "It looks like you just finished a great fight. I didn't think we would meet again, Sung Woo." It turned out that the person leading the troops was Sergeant Kim. Sung Woo also welcomed Sergeant Kim's arrival. He said, "Thank goodness you have recovered. Looks like the potion I gave you is very effective, so you can see you walking again." Sergeant Kim also said that, "I am very grateful that because of you I can return to my prime condition." Sung Woo also asked Sergeant Kim, "Isn't this a little strange? What brings you guys here?" Sergeant Kim also explained that the military had been monitoring this area since there was a notification in the community that there are people who create chef areas. I didn't expect such a big problem to occur due to the save area. Sung-woo muttered that watching that was a sign that they already knew there would be a fight here. That means they chose to remain silent rather than help during the fight. I'd better hold back my emotions now. Sergeant Kim said, I'm sorry if I just said this, but there are people who want to meet you. Sung-woo asked, did you meet me? Who? Sergeant Kim smiled and said that it seemed the Korean military was still running. The scene then shifts to the military headquarters. Here you can see people watching from a distance. That person already had a high rank. He stared firmly at the group that had just arrived. This is the end of The Lone Necromancer Part 1 to Part 5. Thank you. Keep watching the content from this channel. Remember to like and subscribe to keep you updated with our latest content. See you in the next part.